it's on the record who is in charge of what. And that there is a creation again of a new commission, another layer of bureaucracy.
Next would be from the minority.
I guess that's why our national language plan is not yet passed. I think that's why. Okay, I just wanted to point out those questions so that it's on the record who is in charge of what. Okay, thank you, Mr.
Would you want to take your place of parling para matapos na sa minority? Next would be from the minority.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Later na lang si pag dumating, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, my questions is about dun sa mga reclamation projects. Mr. Chair, my questions is about dun sa mga reclamation projects. Mr. Chair, my questions is reclamation dito sa buong Pilipinas, lalong-lalo na sa Manila Bay. List po kayo o details ng implementation stage, ng contractors, completion year of the reclamation projects nationwide, and specifically in Environmental Compliance Certificate sa DENR, DNB, kaugnay dito sa buong Pilipinas. And kung may list po kayo o details ng implementation stage, contractors, completion year of the reclamation projects nationwide,
yes,
and specifically
as far as
in
all
Manila
over
Bay.
the country po, the PRA will be the actual source of that information.
How many all
in
over the
terms of
country
what
and how many
reclamation
in Manila Bay?
projects have already been approved all over the country. In terms
Yes,
of
po.
our position po in the Manila Bay area,
Yes, ma'am, you may reply.
I will
Yes,
turn
Mr.
over
Chair.
to
As far as
Yusek
all over the
Michkuna
country
to
po,
actually respond to this.
PRA would be
the
Thank you very much,
actual
Mr.
source
Chair.
of that information.
In the Manila Bay area,
in
ma'am,
terms of
there
what
are
reclamation projects
15
have already been approved all over the
projects
country.
in
In
the
terms of
NCR
our
area.
position po in the
And
Manila
then there
Bay
are 7
area,
in Region 4A.
I will turn over to
Mr. Chair.
Yusek Michkuna to actually respond to this question.
Reply to
Yes,
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair,
In the Manila Bay area, ma'am,
ano yung
there
status
are
nung sa Manila Bay?
15
Kasi I've heard, diba, sabi nga ng
projects
pinasususpinde itong mga ito sa, na hindi
an
nakasama na sa
evaluation of all the
suspension.
existing projects for reclamation in the area. Actually, there has been a clarification made with the Office of the President announcement after the evaluation.
Thank you. In the meantime, can I turn over to
exception.
Congressman
So
Bongalon,
that's
the
the
chair.
status right now,
Just for a
ma'am,
few minutes,
pending
I'm going to another.
an evaluation of all the existing projects
you,
for
Congressman
reclamation in the area.
You may not proceed, Representative Brosas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, yung sa sinabi ng Pangulo na suspendido ang mga reclamation projects, ano po yung naging klarong guidelines bukod sa utos na ito? Ano pong ginamit ninyo?
Thank you, Congressman Alvarez. You may not proceed, Representative
So, in terms
Brosas.
of the
Thank you,
suspension,
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, yung sa
we are now
sinabi ng Pangulo na suspendido ang mga reclamation projects, ano po yung naging klarong guidelines bukod sa utos na ito? Ano pong ginamit ninyo?
capacity as the DNR to implement as the lead agency the mandamus order of the Supreme Court.
in terms of the
So at this point po, because of
Mr. Chair,
this
we are now conducting
contradictory,
the cumulative impact
contradictory
assessment that is necessary
mandates,
in order
we do
to
need to
evaluate the
abide
total
by the
impact
suspension
of all these
order, and we will be
projects on
conducting
our
the
capacity
scientific
as the
assessment.
Mr. Chair, I was asking for the order and the clear guidelines. Meron bang nilabas?
So at this point po, because of
Specific
this
on that.
seemingly
Kasi Mr. Chair, nakakabalita pa rin tayo ng mga ulat na sa reclamation, meron pa rin mga activities na nangyayari sa Cavite. Katulad ng Rosario, Noveleta, Tanza, Mr. Chair, I was asking for the order and the clear guidelines. Kaya ang tanong po natin, at saka project sa Manila Bay, kasi Mr. Chair, nakakabalita pa rin tayo ng mga ulat na sa reclamation, meron pa rin mga activities na nangyayari sa Cavite. Katulad ng Rosario, Noveleta, Tanza, Naik.
on the need to suspend in order to assess the impact of all
Kaya
these
ang tanong
projects.
po natin, at saka
And,
projects in Manila
this will
Bay,
include
Yes, I think the good secretary has mentioned that it was through verbal
What we can confirm at this
statement by
point
the
po,
President, and
Mr.
there was
Chair,
no
is that
written
we have
order issued.
acted on the
Can you
verbal
confirm that,
declaration of
Madam
the President.
Secretary? Congresswoman Brosas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to labor that point na. No, at sinagot naman na tayo. Mr. Chair, there were reports from the U.S. Embassy that there is an involvement of a Chinese construction company to these projects, namely China Communications Constructions.
Congresswoman Rosas.
According to them, the state-owned company has already been flagged by the World Bank for fraudulent practices under the Phase 1 of the Philippine National Roads Improvement and Management Project. That there is an involvement of a Chinese embassy sa construction company na ito ay isa sa mga communications construction na suspinde ang reclamation sa Manila Bay, Mr. Chair.
Madam
By the
Secretary,
World
please
Bank
respond.
for fraudulent practices
Chair, we
under
are
the
not
Phase
in the
1
position
of the
to
Philippine National
actually
Roads
speculate
Improvement
what
and
would have made
Management
the
Project. Ang
make
pahayag
that
po ba ng
declaration.
U.S.
So
Embassy
we
ukol
are
sa
just going
construction
by
company na ito ay
statements
isa sa
that,
mga
there will
dahilan
be a
kung bakit
suspension
pinasuspinde ang reclamation sa Manila Bay.
Congresswoman Rosas.
Mr. Chair, ano po yung tinambang na dahilan sa pag-suspend ng
Mr. Chair,
reclamation?
we are not in the position to actually speculate
Madam
what
Secretary.
would have made
Thank you,
the
Mr. Chair. I believe
make
the
that
President
declaration.
is
So
unique
we
in
are
that he
just going
understands
by
the
his
intersections
statement
between
that,
climate change,
there will be a
the
suspension
physical
pending.
environment, our social and economic,
Congresswoman Rosas.
and
So, Mr.
ecological
Chair, ano po yung
conditions in
tinambang na
order to
dahilan sa
sustain,
pag-suspend ng
our
reclamation?
development. And at this point, it
Madam
is our
Secretary.
belief that
Thank you,
this
Mr.
is
Chair.
concern
I believe the
for
President
sustainable
is
development
unique
and
in
how
that
we
he
can contribute
understands
to
the
the Philippine
intersections
development
between
plan
climate change
that may have
physical
environment,
our social and economic,
may have led to the
and
declaration of the
ecological
President.
conditions in order to sustain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mas
our
maganda nga
development.
siguro kung merong
And,
order and
at
guidelines
this
kasi
point,
makikita natin doon yung
it's our
pinakadahilan
belief
kung
that
bakit
it is concerned
pinasususpend in the
for
first place.
sustainable
Nang hindi rin tayo
development and how we can
nag-speculate.
contribute to the Philippine
Mr.
development
Chair,
plan
my second question
that,
is
may
on
have
the
in fact,
coastal road and shore protection
may have led to
projects
the
in Gubat,
declaration.
Sursogon. Mr. Chair, Mr. ikinababahala Chair, po mas maganda nga sa siguro question kung ko na po merong ito, order and guidelines kasi makikita natin ng mga residente ng Gubat, Sursogon, ang pagtatayo ng coastal road at shore protection projects sa 13 coastal barangays sa kanilang komunidad sa banta sa aquaculture resources na matatagpuan sa coast at sa hanap buhay ng mga mangingisda at mag-aalimango sa lugar. Lahat ba ng ito ay dumaan sa Project Impact Assessment at mayroong Environmental Compliance Certificate or ECC at ilan po yung mga mangingisda na apektado sa pagtatayo ng coastal road at shore protection projects daw na ito.
Okay, Madam Secretary, please respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll turn over to Yusek Mitchkuna for the response.
Ms. Kuna, you are now recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As per the Regional Executive Director of Region 5, Mr. Chair, the project underwent the EIA process and has been issued an ECC, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, may I have a
Please
copy of
proceed.
the ECC application nito? Yung in-issue pala ng DENR.
Mr. Chair, we will
Yes,
readily
proceed.
submit the copy of the ECC.
Please furnish the committee of that copy. Congresswoman Rosas.
Yes, Mr. Chair, sa mga proyekto na tulad ito, no, yung Balud del Norte Cota na Daco, Cogon, Coastal Road Shore Protection Project sa Barangay Balud del Norte, the DENR, EMB Region 5 already slapped a cease and desist last March 16, 2022, while the DPWH project stopped in Barangays Cota and Daco and Cogon. The coastal road projects were still constructed and completed in Barangay Balud del Norte. Tama ba, Mr. Chair? Considering na nag-issue ang DENR ng cease and desist order, anong ginawa aksyon ng DENR dito?
Okay. DNR, please respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I call on Yusek Mitchkuna to respond?
Yusek Mitch Kuna.
Mr. Chair, if I may, as the Regional Director of the Environmental Management Bureau of Region 5 is here, and unless I did not get the question correct, Mr. Chair, she said that the project after the CDO did not push through and they were required to comply, which they have not complied with yet at this time, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Congresswoman Rosas, you may wind up your questions, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, i-clear ko lang na stop. Walang coastal road tayong pinag-uusapan ngayon. Na-stop yan, but it was said na completed and constructed.
Uh,
Under dispute
Kuna?
pa?
As per the Regional Director of Region 5 EMB, Mr. Chair, the project has not been completed.
Okay. Mr. Chair, last question to. Oo, 53 na magsasaka, mangingisda. Sorry, galing lang po kasi akong DA. So ngayon naman sa 53 na mangingisda at kanilang pamilya na nakatira sa disputed land na inaangkin ng local contractor sa Barangay Cogon sa Sorsogon. Ano ang land classification ng disputed land na ito? Mahalaga pong malaman natin para rin makita kung ang lugar ba ay hindi foreshore or salvage area na hindi dapat ipapatitle, di ba, kapag ka ganon ang classification, Mr. Chair. Ano na ang status nito?
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may, may we respectfully request for more details, Mr. Chair, as the area mentioned is quite a large area, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Yusek Kuna. Congresswoman Brosas.
Yes, Mr. Chair, pwede namang ihabol na lang kasi kasi malamang i-take up ko rin to in plenary if hindi po tayo nasagot. So, yung Penrose Sorsogon yata ang merong dito, the Provincial Environmental Natural Resources Office, Sorsogon, yung land classification yung tinatanong ko, yung disputed land ng Barangay Cogon, Penrose Sorsogon ang dapat magbigay ng data. May I have that, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we will confer with the Penro of Sorsogon and get a report as soon as possible and submit to the committee.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Congresswoman Brosas. Now we'll proceed to the next interpolator from the majority. May call in Representative Solomon Chungalaw to start his interpolation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Greetings to the DENR family, headed by the Secretary. I question to my parochial concern. May I inquire if Director Emeline Talabis of the Land Management Bureau is around?
Madam Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chair, she is here present.
She is present, Congressman Chungalaw.
Yes, because there is a letter of DBM to the Land Management Bureau for the Land Management Bureau addressed to Director Talabis for the issue is a certification, land area certification for the municipality of Paolo and Aguinaldo for DBM to the computed revenue allocation of Payoyaw. That was dated September 2022. Hanggang ngayon, the department has not complied with that letter of DBM. May we ask why?
Madam Secretary, can you respond?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I call on Director Talabis, who is present, to respond specifically.
You are now recognized, Director.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary. Regarding the concern of Congressman Chungalaw, we are still the Land Management Bureau together with the concerned regional offices, Region 2 and Cordillera Administrative Region. We are still settling that technical issue between the boundary conflict between Mayoyaw and then Diadi and Candon, Isabela. So there are actually three tri-boundary dispute, and the Region 2, I have already forwarded to Region 2 a memorandum to look into the amendment of the political boundary survey. So that was in July, Your Honor. So it's already being looked into by Region 2, Your Honor.
Okay, Representative Chungalaw.
Director, there is no land dispute from the province of Ifugao with the province of Biscaya or the province of Ifugao with the province of Isabela. Bakit kailangan yun? The DENR Cordillera already submitted what was required by DBM. Now DBM is requiring your office to issue that land area certification when Secretary Panamdaman visited the Rastares of Bayaw. According to her, they cannot compute the internal revenue allocation kasi yung office ninyo has not complied. Bakit mag isang taon na The mayor and vice mayor are here because they are frustrated every time they follow it up. Ang sagot ng opisina niyo for signing hanggang mag-iisang taon for signing. When will we expect that? I would like a very definite answer. Isang taon na yan eh.
Madam Director, please respond.
Opo. Honorable Congressman, Your Honor, we respectfully request for time to settle the technical issues between the boundaries of these municipalities. Madam Chair, we request that maybe we sit down with the concerned regions, specifically to speed up the amendment of this boundary survey. So, medyo matagal po kasi ito gawin dahil tinitingnan yung maps, and then we should be very careful in coming up with a report, because kung ano po yung report na ibibigay ng DNR, three municipalities po kasi yung involved. So we would like to be very careful about this, Your Honor. So if we can be allowed to have time extension to do this. Thank you.
Congressman Chungalaw.
Well, I hope it would not be before the budget plenary hearing of this department. Isang taon na yan eh. I got a assurance from the director of Region 2 to come out to the requirements. There is no dispute on the land area between Bisikaya and Ifugao and between Ifugao and Isabela. Bakit kailangan yun? So it does not take so long. I hope sabi ni director ng Region 2, by next week they will comply with the requirements. So I hope by next week nandyan na yung requirements. Pwede ba yun, director? Could we get an assurance?
Director, please respond.
Yes po, Your Honor. We will do our best, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. My next question, Secretary, is the forest management program, is it ongoing with DENR?
Madam Secretary.
Mr.
Please respond.
Yes, if I may, I will turn over to Yusek Jonas Leones for the details of this.
Yusek Leones is recognized.
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, the project has already been completed, Mr. Chair.
Bakit last year I was asking, sabi niyo is it ongoing? I asked that because under the forest management program, 5 lang ang probinsya that was selected, and one of that is Ifugao. Now, the reason for that is my entire province was declared watershed protected area for Magat Dam. Those forest management program. So, in other words, completed. Masakit ang loob namin kasi mga pondo ng program na yan ma-transfer to another province na wala pa kapilit.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Yusek Leones.
Mr. Chair, the project, in terms of accomplishment, Mr. Chair, the project has already completed. As we mentioned a while ago on the utilization, we are in the process of paying all the IPs or the POs who have accomplished the activities, and the NEDA and the JICA has already agreed to grant us a 1-year extension just to defray or just to settle all the obligations in terms of the accomplishment of the IPs and POs.
Other words, may pondo pa niiwan, di ba? Am I correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair, but this allocation, remaining allocations have already been committed and obligated for the payment of those IPs who have already accomplished their activities, Mr. Chair.
I think I am not hearing correctly kasi yung puno na iiwan, pwede bang maraming project na pwede dyan eh. I was assured of that last year when I inquired about that in the budget.
Based on our, Mr. Chair,
Yusek Leones.
based on our analysis of the report, Mr. Chair, all the remaining allocations has already been earmarked for just payment of those activities that have already been completed, Mr. Chair.
Congressman Chungalaw, kindly wrap up your questions, please.
I still one more. Now, anyway, I'll go to that during the plenary. Now, my last question is whether I can request DENR for DENR to make sure not to declare mud police a protected area. The only reason I would like that to be surveyed and declared protected area because mud police is about the lake. Now that it's a secret of the Panawi restorations, the irrigation, the waters that will water the Panawi restorations come from this mountain lake that has come from the rivers. Kaya yung mga terraces are above the rivers. Now, if we will lose that, kawawa naman we will destroy the Panawi restorations, which is a UNESCO heritage site. So I would like the Sana to make sure that it will be surveyed and declared a protected area.
Madam Secretary, please respond.
Mr. Chair, I wish to assure the Honorable Congressman that we will undertake the necessary assessments in order to have this area declared a protected area, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Secretary, because that Mountain Lakes water is also Malik Mountain Province and Batok Mountain Province. Saka hindi lang Ibugaw. Kaya ito mga mountain lake namin actually that should be protected because of Bagat Dam. Kasi kung matinid lang yan, kawan naman na Isabela and Cagayan. Kasi the Bagat Dam comes from Ifugao yung tubig and it's located in Ifugao. Thank you, Madam Secretary, but I will go back to my first question ng Land Management Bureau. Nandito kasi si Mayor at saka si Vice Mayor. They are frustrated. Director Travis, because every time they fall it up, iyon ang sagot for signing for more than a year for signing hanggang ngayon. Wala pa. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Chungalaw. Madam Secretary, kindly make a brief response and then we'll proceed to the next interpolator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We wish to reassure the Honorable Congressman that we have noted all his concerns. And certainly on the final concern, we're under writ of kalikasan po in this area, and so we would also prefer that this would be declared a protected area. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Now, next to interpolate, may we call in from the independent minority, Congressman Ed Salagman. You are now recognized, Cong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no questions on the proposed budget of DENR proper. But let me just request the Honorable Secretary to submit in writing the following concern. The parameters, import, and accomplishments of the nationwide greening program, which amounts annually to billions of pesos. May we request that this answer be submitted soonest to the committee, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair.
Madam Secretary.
Mr. Chair, I wish to reassure the Honorable Congressman that we will, at the soonest possible time, in fact, we do have already a report, and we'll be submitting that to the Honorable Congressman.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Chair, with respect to Namria. I understand the administrator is in isolation, and he's not here, but I wonder whether my question can be answered by Madam Secretary or any official of the department. Yesterday, I asked the Secretary of Foreign Affairs whether they have any data on the magnitude of sovereign Philippine territories in the West Philippine Sea illegally occupied by China, wherein the arbitral decision was in favor of the Philippines and against the spurious claims of China. According to the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, NAMBRIA has the data? May we know whether NAMBRIA in fact has the data?
Madam Secretary, please respond.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I confirm that there is data at NAMRIA, and the Deputy of Administrator of NAMRIA is here present, and he can also respond in detail.
Kindly introduce yourself, Madam, before you give your answer.
Good morning, sir. I'm Ofelia Castro, currently OIC Deputy Administrator of NAMRIA.
Okay, please respond.
Can you repeat the question, sir, please?
Does NAMBRIA have the actual magnitude of the Philippine sovereign territory in the West Philippine Sea illegally occupied by China against the arbitral award in favor of the Philippines and against the spurious claims of China?
Please
Sir,
respond.
yes. What we have is the boundary of our exclusive economic zone. Yes, of the maritime territory.
Okay. Madam Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may, I will refer to Yusek Anante, who also represents us on the task force for the West Philippines.
Yusek is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, we confirm that we have data, in fact, in the National Task Force West Philippine Sea. The data that being used in the discussion come from the NAMRIA, Mr. Chair.
If you have the data, can you tell us, Mr. Chair, what is the total area awarded to the Philippines under the arbitral award, which is now illegally occupied by China,
Please respond.
in contumacious defiance of the arbitral award?
Please respond. DNR. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may recommend that we have an executive session regarding this topic in order to actually address the question of the Honorable Congressman.
Congressman Lagman.
Well, if you have the data, why do we need to have an executive session? Kindly disclose the data now, because we are claiming that China has occupied so much of the territory awarded to the Philippines. My only question is, what is the magnitude of the area occupied by China?
Madam Secretary, kindly respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As advised by our representative on the Task Force West Philippine Sea, we do need clearance from the National Security Council in order for us to release this data.
Congressman Lagman.
So you cannot disclose now the magnitude of the area.
Yes, Madam Secretary, please answer.
Yes, as mentioned by our Deputy Administrator of NAMRIA, we can, of course, provide data on the boundaries of our territorial areas. However, on the actual identification of the illegally occupied, we do need the clearance from the Council.
If you then please get the clearance and submit to this committee the area involved, the magnitude of the area illegally occupied by China.
Madam Secretary, can we comply with the request of the Honorable Lagman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We will request the clearance and we will revert immediately.
Yes, and please furnish the committee of the requested document or data. Thank you.
Both the request for clearance as well as the actual area.
Yes. Kindly take note of that, Madam Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Well noted.
I have no more further questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Honorable.
Thank you, Congressman Lagman. Now we'll shift to the majority, and the chair recognizes the Honorable Joey Salceda to start his interpellation.
Good morning, classmate. Lahat ito kasi mga nakasama ko, all of them. Anate, siyempre, tatay nito, ZP, all of, no, sino siya? Mas mukha ka daw bata kay sa akin. Well, please don't charge that to my question. Number one, ma'am,
Kaya ako napababa dahil may sinabi na there are 19 convergence areas for water resource management. That means floods, irrigation, and potable water. Can I have a list? CP, where's the list?
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Can you do that?
Chair. Uy, tumatakbo ang oras.
Sorry, please, Madam Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, we will be able to supply.
Ilan yan?
Actually, 29. Actually,
29. Ilan sa Bicol?
If I may defer
Yes,
to
Madam Secretary.
Undersecretary Carlos David for the details po.
Dr. David, please respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kung Joey, there are 29 projects that we wish to propose, and these are only for the first 5 provinces that are within the Pampanga area. For Bicol, wala pa at this point.
Tarig naman ni GMA.
Wala na.
Umalis na ba? Okay, number 2 question. Wala pa ako 30 seconds ha. May sarili akong relo. There are 5,957 hectares covered by reclamation permits. If we just use 250,000 per square meter, that's 14.5 trillion. Does the cumulative impact assessment include economics?
Madam Secretary, can you
That
respond?
is 14.5 trillion, assuming that it's not a master plan development for these 5,797.6 hectares covered by the reclamation.
Please respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it includes economics.
Who is doing the economics?
We're still identifying
May I know who is doing the economics in this group?
in the DNR.
Don't you think that there will be negative impacts on the economics
Sir, if I...
because of the suspension?
Yes, please proceed, Madam Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of the cumulative impact assessment is in fact to weigh and balance all the different dimensions of the development. And therefore, economics as well as the other social aspects of development are also included in the assessment. This afternoon, Mr. Chair, we are meeting first with the physical scientists who have accepted the challenge of joining us in this team. The next round po will be a review of the social scientists who may be able to join us in this assessment. We still do not have identified...
Okay, number 2. Okay na ako dyan. I'm sure I can take your word for it. Is there an innovative or creative way of complying with the mandamus by OPOSA, even if we pursue this 5,997.6 hectares of reclamation?
Madam Secretary.
Because it refers to Manila Bay, and the Manila Bay does not stop within the 5,957, which is probably less than 5% of the total area of the Manila Bay.
Yes,
And
Madam
therefore,
Secretary.
you cannot conveniently use the Supreme Court ruling on the mandamus to stop this.
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The issue of the mandamus, it really is referring to our capacity
Cleanup.
as the DNR to actually implement the cleanup of
Yes.
Manila Bay. At this point, we have advised, in fact, some of the
So
proponents.
which one do you respect? The one that was not reclaimed by Imelda Marcos, or the one that's now being pursued? Which boundaries will you respect for the mandamus? You must remember that the mother of this president was the one who started the reclamation in that area.
Madam Secretary.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The mandamus would be the date for our actual baseline. If I may present that to you, Mr.
So
Chair.
beyond Fort Arcsetter.
Yes, po. Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
just to share the information with this honorable body, there is a Manila Bay Sustainable Development Master Plan that was commissioned under the previous administration.
Yes, I've seen that.
It also establishes a baseline reference from which we may be able to work on terms of the cumulative impact assessment.
By just visual, may overlap na ba?
with which you can already deny, not just suspend, any of these 22 reclamation projects?
Mr. Chair, if I may, as mentioned by the Honorable Congressman, there may be engineering and design solutions to some of the developments in order...
In complying with the mandamus.
Yes, if I may, to some of the developments in order for us to be able to comply with the mandamus.
No, I'm just telling you because that entire 5,957.6 hectares, the real value of that is half of the GDP of this country. No, just a reminder lang. But the next question is, there is some suspicion that there is pressure being from our ally, the United States, simply because one of the projects right behind their embassy is being done by the listed Chinese company. That's why, in order to provide policy camouflage, you engage all 22. Is that suspicion feasible?
Yes, please respond.
Mr. Chair, this suspicion is beyond our mandate at the DENR. We are here to actually investigate in the compliance with the ECCs and the area clearances granted. There are conditions.
Well, I believe that suspicion. That's just for your information. Suportado niyo na ba yung DWR? Para yung WRMO because it was in the zona.
Madam Secretary.
Mr. Chair, we believe that there is a need for an apex body.
So now, is the WRMO and the DWR, because the President was very clear in the SONA that he wants a DWR?
We have always believed that the WRMO will be a transitional body towards the creation of another body to...
Okay, so you believe there's an apex body?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Nakita mo na ba yung fiscal regime for mining? Are you satisfied or are you in favor? Mr. King? Okay, he's against.
Madam Secretary, kindly respond.
Mr. Chair, we believe that the role of the DENR here is really not to...
That's okay. So this is fiscal regime anyway.
Exactly, Mr. Chair.
So, will you proceed with a possible auction? Inabutan tuloy ako. Possible auction system for awarding of reservations or outside reservations.
Please respond.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Would you commit to a policy that to make auction of reservation as the basis for grant of concessions?
Mr. Chair, we are considering that approach.
Can I ask just for 2 minutes? Bibilisan ko na. Ilan ba biosphere sa Pilipinas, ma'am?
Yes, if I may, I'll defer to Ase Camaro here, but we do have biogeographic regions.
No, but this is recognized by UNESCO.
Ase Camaro.
Ase Camaro, you are now recognized. Kindly respond.
Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary, I'm sorry, I'm at a loss right now.
There are 3.
Yes.
One of which is Albay, and it is the contribution of the Philippines to the next generation that there will be forest and natural ecosystem so that life as we know it will proceed. So in short, has DENR done anything, because after 10 years of being recognized by UNESCO, has DENR done anything because we're not subject to validation, otherwise we will lose the accreditation by UNESCO?
DENR, can we comment or respond to that query?
Tatlo pati sa iyo, isa pa. Dalawa ka ba? So 4 pala.
Yes, Madam Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We are here to actually support the maintenance of the status of all these biospheres, and hopefully...
Wala ka naman sa budget nakalagay, ma'am eh.
Actually, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yes, we do have a protected area management budget, and so if these are legislated protected areas, therefore
No,
they
they're
will
not
be
registered.
funding.
They are UNESCO recognized. Well, and we went through an entire process in order to get recognized.
So, as confirmed by Yusek Anate, ang head of our finance, the UNESCO sites
Last 2 questions. Okay na
are
ako.
part of
Para
our
sinasabi ko lang
budget.
sa'yo na sana malagyan mo ng pera pa. Pangalawa,
Yes,
Thank you,
Congressman
ang
Salceda.
uso na ngayon, anti-climate change is energy mitigation, and essentially it's about hydrogen. So what is the role of DNR with respect to considering hydrogen as a source of energy
All
and its
envi-
environmental impacts?
Yes, Madam Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have to develop the capacity to actually manage the environmental impacts and implications of the transition towards hydrogen. And so we are developing that capacity slowly in consultation with our development partners.
Under the Paris Treaty, Paris Agreement, we're supposed to have our own carbon markets, or in other words, our emission markets. So does DNR have already, or at least a body that essentially establishes our own independent, sovereign emission markets
Yes,
Yes,
in,
Madam
in
Secretary.
terms of GHG avoidance?
Yes, please proceed.
we are currently developing our own framework and our own mechanisms in order to actually address the need for us to participate in the global carbon market. I would basically also,
So who's in charge, ma'am?
right now po, Climate Change Service, which is
Si ano
Sec.
pe?
Anate. Yes.
Ikaw rin pala pepestingin ko. Okay, so last na, ma'am.
Last question, Congressman Salceda.
Ang sabi ng San Miguel, because I am the principal author of the Bulacan Ecozone, but the Bulacan Aero City is already a law. But essentially, given the all the issues surrounding the flooding, as well as, of course, the reclamation, do you consider the SMC activities in the area, especially the 2,700 hectares, do you consider that as reclamation? And therefore, and since you did not suspend it, and therefore it's not?
Madam Secretary, please respond to the last question of Congressman Salceda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As far as our information is concerned, we consider this an area of recovery of titled lands that were submerged, that were used as fish ponds originally. And
But-
this is under the project of the DOTR that we are respecting.
But you issued an ECC to it, right?
All projects will have an ECC issued to it.
And you have they have titles to it.
This is our information,
Our
yes.
reclamation areas have titles prior to reclamation.
Not to our knowledge, Mr. Chair.
Hey, just for your edification, the entire area is, 950 area is fish ponds. These are land na kinalot. Fish pond permanently inundated, 1,100 hectares. Fish pond mud flat with low tide, 231 hectares, and salt pond of 36 hectares. So in short, Madam Chair, I will finish with that because I just want to ensure that once I go to the floor to defend it, DNR is on my side. That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you, classmate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Honorable Congressman has our assurance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Incidentally, Gilbert is also my classmate. He was always second honors. He never beat me.
Okay, thank you, Congressman Salceda. Now we proceed with the minority. The chair acknowledges Deputy Minority Leader Franz Castro. Congresswoman, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Magandang tanghali po sa ating lahat. Usaping reclamation pa rin, Mr. Chair. So bago magkaroon ng reclamation, anumang reclamation in our history, ano po yung area ng Manila Bay?
Madam Secretary.
Madam Secretary, Mr. Chair, if we may, we will actually give that to you in historical context because, as you may know, Intramuros and Luneta are in fact reclaimed areas.
Congressman Castro.
So malaki, no? Mr. Chair, kukuhanin ko rin yung history, no? Kung paano nag-evolve yung mga reclamation. At nakita natin, Mr. Chair, napakaliit na, no? Ng Manila Bay. Plus yung 21 pa na reclamation na nagkaroon talaga ng impact. So, although sinasabi natin may mga economic gain tayo dito sa mga reclamation na to, pero kung titignan natin yung environmental impact, yung aesthetic impact, alam niyo po, baka dumating ang panahon, hindi na natin makita yung magandang hinahangaan sa Manila Bay. Yung ating sunset, di ba, doon sa Manila Bay. Kaya talaga pong malaki yung impact nitong mga reclamation na yan. At positive naman na sinuspend. Okay? At para makita rin natin, mapag-aralan din natin. Pero, ano ba yung direksyon nitong pag-aaral na ito? Are you going to suspend, stop the reclamation further ng Manila Bay?
Okay, Madam Secretary.
Mr. Chair, if I may respond directly to that question, the scientific team that will do the cumulative impact assessment is still being formed po, as I had released to the public last week. And so the directions that will be taken will be determined by the results of their scientific work. So here we have, as I mentioned po, Mr. Chair, physical and social, as well as, of course, engineering scientists that will be part of this cumulative impact assessment team. We will also be consulting for the information of our Honorable Congresswoman, the National Commission on Culture and Arts. There are historical, cultural, and anthropological concerns regarding also the development of this area, and so we are not leaving that out of our impact assessment.
Congresswoman.
Okay, so
Castro.
sana makasama rin nyo sa pag-aaral, Mr. Chair, yung mga organization ng mga tao na naapektuhan. Hindi lang kasi yun sa NCR, hindi lang kasi sa Manila eh. It covers many provinces, Cavite, Bulacan, di po ba, Bataan, etc. na makonsider din. So, halimbawa, ito pong inaprubahan namin na SMC Airport. Kasama din pa dito yung pag-aaralan ninyo yung the environmental impact. Kasama rin po ba yan? Yung airport na ginagawa, yung impact nito doon sa ating environment. Kasama rin po ba?
As an ongoing national project po, we will be, of course, monitoring the environmental impact of the airport project. We do respect the lead of the DODR and, of course, the parties involved in the Bulacan airport development. However, we do also perform our task in terms of environmental monitoring and ensuring that compliance is actually observed.
So, aasahan po natin na yung San Miguel Corporation's Metropolis Project po ay kasama rin po doon sa assessment ninyo, together with the suspended 21 na reclamation project.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There will be continuous monitoring of this project. We do not regard it as among the reclamation projects. As mentioned po, Mr. Chair, Honorable Congresswoman earlier, this is a national government project, recovery of fish pond areas that were titled. They will require constant monitoring in terms of the implementation. It will be a separate initiative on the part of the DENR and undertaking in order to monitor this project environment.
Congresswoman Castro.
Okay, so parang iniiwasan, Mr. Chair, yung sagutin. Diba? Dahil inisyuhan nyo rin ito ng ECC eh. So, malaki ang area na sasakupin nitong project na ito. At bago ito na-aprubahan, sinasabi natin sa interpellation natin, yung problema natin dun sa environmental impact din nito. So, bakit parang sinasabi nyo, hindi nyo masagot ng diretso kung ito rin isasama ninyo doon sa pag-assess sa environmental impact. Kasi nakita na nga natin yung flooding eh. Diba? Na isa rin siguro itong factor. So would you answer that categorically kung isasama nyo rin po ito? Kasi lahat naman dapat monitor natin, di ba? So yun lang yung the least that you could do.
Madam Secretary.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. They are already undergoing continuous monitoring po because it's an ongoing project and therefore hindi po iniiwasan ng DENR ang mandato po namin. We are undertaking continuous monitoring environmentally of this project. Thank you po, Mr. Chair.
Congresswoman Franz.
Okay. Next po, tungkol sa Manila Bay Rehabilitation. By the way, meron pa rin po ba kayong mga mga reclamation project po, hindi lang po dito sa Manila? Like yung sa Cebu or sa iba pang mga probinsya. So are you undergoing monitoring din po or assessment environmental impact doon sa iba pa? Kung meron, Mr. Chair, hindi na kailangan sagutin kasi alam na natin kung saan yan. Could you submit that before the plenary session po? No? Hindi lang po Manila, kundi yung sa iba pang lugar. Okay, next, ano po yung plano ninyo dito sa 1.4 billion na rehabilitation? So, meron po ba?
Madam Secretary?
Mr. Chair, I'll turn over to Undersecretary Jonas Leones for the utilization of the budget.
Yes, Yusik Leones, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Your Honor. For the 2024 budget allocation of 1.3 billion, we will still continue, Mr. Chair, the implementation of continuous rehabilitation of Manila Bay by establishing or construction of additional STPs in areas where we find there is high pollution. We will be undertaking also clearing and grabbing of esteros, and we will be enforcing our environmental laws like recovery of easements, and coordinate with other agencies for the possible resettlement of the informal settlers residing along the esteros connecting to Manila Bay, Mr. Chair.
Well, taon-taon naman, Mr. Chair, no, may budget para sa Manila Bay Rehabilitation. So, could you provide us noong mga ginawa niyo na for the past years nitong rehabilitation ng Manila Bay? Kasi para makita natin kung baka paulit-ulit na lang yan or the same, yung lugar or whatever. Pasubmit na lang po before the plenary. Okay, next, Mr. Chair, familiar ba kayo doon sa mga aerial strikes, indiscriminate bombing, and other military operations that are taking place near our biodiversity areas and protected areas? Magbibigay po ako ng example. Yung aerial bombing na ginawa ng militar dun sa Mount Hilong-Hilong, November yan, 2022, at saka sa Mindoro bombings no October 2022. So, familiar po ba kayo doon? At ano po yung ginawa natin para maprotektahan? Hindi ko po ina-undermine yung Siyempre, apektado yung mga community dyan. So ano po particular yung ginawa natin doon para protectionan yung biodiversity sa lugar?
Before the good secretary respond, may I remind that you still have 30 seconds left for questioning. Madam Secretary, please respond.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much for that information. We would be very grateful for the details of those incidents from the Honorable Congresswoman, and we will certainly look into this and report back to her on what were the results of our investigation.
Congresswoman Castro.
Well, ano po, hindi nyo alam yon? Hindi nyo po alam yung mga aerial bombings?
We do not have formal reports of the aerial bombings.
Congresswoman Franz.
Well, very disappointing, no? Kasi marami tayong mga biodiversity areas and protected areas na tinamaan itong mga military operations na to. And I advise the Department of Environment and Natural Resources to look on this. Tingnan niyo po ito, no? Yung Mount Hilong-Hilong, tsaka yung sa Mindoro bombings. So, yun po, Mr. Chair. At bago ako magtapos, Mr. Chair, regarding dun sa Manila Bay Rehabilitation, can you submit to us, to our committee, this representation, yung audited report nung rehabilitation ng Manila Bay, yung rehabilitation budget nyo doon sa Manila Bay. At siguro bago mag-plenary, Mr. Chair, marinig ko na rin yung report from the DENR regarding doon sa sinabi nating mga indiscriminate aerial bombing, no, doon sa mga lugar na sinabi ko. Imbestigahan niyo yun, anong nangyari, at magbigay po kayo ng report sa committee. Pwede po ba, Secretary?
Madam Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we reassure Madam Congresswoman that we will be doing as she has advised.
Thank you po.
Okay, thank you, Congresswoman Franz Castro. Now, we proceed to the next interpolator. The chair recognizes Vice Chairperson Chodorico Haresco. Kong, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. To our Senior Vice Chair, Stella Kimball. Again, Madam Secretary, welcome po sa House, and all my friends and colleagues sa DNR. As one of your co-sponsors, from perpetual co-sponsor, I would like to express my gentle reminder to DNR that in less than 12 months, babalik na naman kayo dito. And also that the President's major article in the SONA was climate change and greening. I have three major concerns, Madam Secretary. The first is your department's unique contribution to the global stage on climate change. Second, in the Mindoro oil spill, who is responsible for claiming from the international body the oil spill stabilization fund? In my calculation, that was $328,000. And my second major concern is being an accountant, Madam Secretary, your obligation rate, the average from 2016 to 2022 was 94.36%. But the first quarter of this year, your obligation rate was 35.18%. Your disbursement rate averaged from 2016 to 2022, 79.25%. But on the first quarter of this year, your disbursement rate fell to an outstanding 13.44%. The appropriations given by our beloved President is more or less flat. There is no remarkable slash in the DENR budget, converging with the President's SONA. And on the local issue, there is a protected area in Aklan, some 600 hectares. And that 600 hectares provide the water to Boracay. Boracay contributes some 59 billion per year. And this year alone, the target of DOT was 1.7 million tourists the whole of 2023, but by July 4, we reached 1.7 million tourists. That means without any adverse environmental impact, the revenues are coming in. And we need for that forest 600 hectares, Madam Secretary, siguro we need a hair transplant because there are patches of baldness in the 600 hectares and perhaps some bamboo reforestation, the giant ones from China or something, so that it can be easily replenished. And that 600 hectares, compared to Madam Secretary, maibalik po ang 100 forest guards. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Again, welcome to the House.
Okay. Madam Secretary, can you respond?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you in response to the Honorable Congressman. As far as the global contribution of the DENR to the climate change issue, the President has appointed me, Mr. Chair, as his representative in the Climate Change Commission. So I now currently also participate in the activities of the Climate Change Commission. But he has so far appointed this representation to 5 major global conferences that all have climate change importance. The Asia Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, the UN Global Water Conference, the UN COP15 for CBD, the Convention on Biodiversity, which also touched on climate and water, and the Sendai Framework Midterm Review in New York earlier this year. This group also inside the DNR, in terms of the Climate Change Information Service, is now spearheading the completion of the greenhouse gas inventory, the National Adaptation Plan, and the implementation plan of our operationalization plan of our nationally determined contributions. So we now lead practically most of the activities of the Climate Change Commission in terms of the substantive delivery of the documentation and commitments that we have made to the global community in terms of climate change. We also are involved in the loss and damage calculation together with NEDA and other departments and agencies of government. If I may, on the Mindoro oil spill, the claiming of that fund is not within the DNR's purview. It would be, if I'm not mistaken, we have our task force incident commander here. Yusek Ernie. Oh, she stepped out. If I may defer the response, we do have our incident commander on the Mindoro oil spill here, Mr. Chair. She can respond to who should be the claimant on this fund, and it would not be the DNR. In all probability, it would be the DOJ who would be pursuing this claim. And thirdly, if I may now refer to Yusek Anate, who heads our financial unit, to discuss the obligation rate, Mr. Chair, and the utilization rate.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Vice Chair, would that be the last question?
Madam Secretary, again, Boracay, which has already a global brand, depends on the 600 hectares protected area. So kung pwede lang po, ma-continue ang forest guards, but for 4 years I've been waiting for reforestation.
Okay, thank you.
My
That's the
apologies,
final
Mr.
bit.
Chair.
And
Yes.
Madam Secretary,
I
please respond.
wish to reassure the Honorable Congressman that we will look into the 600 hectares immediately. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you. The next to interpolate, Representative Jervil Luistro. You are now recognized, Congresswoman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon to our guest from the DNR. Towards having a better life, we need to welcome industrialization. However, this is subject to the constitutionally guaranteed right of every Filipino citizen to have a balanced and healthful ecology. In Batangas 2nd District, there are barangays, San Juan, Santo Niño, Mainaga, Calamyas, all in the municipality of Mapini. The bulk of industrialization in the town is located in the area. And indeed, there are 2 huge operations. However, this representation is not certain whether it is quarry, reclamation, or site development. One is by MTDI, Mabini Terminal Development Authority. The other, I am not certain, but there are rumors that it is the brothers of the incumbent mayor, Villanueva brothers, or Viltros. These are the same people who are recently arrested and detained for illegal possession of explosives. Indeed, these companies have firearms. Indeed, these companies have been causing huge amount of dust emission to the residents of 4 barangays. Sobrang gabok kung panahon ng tag-init at sobrang putik kung panahon ng tag-ulan. Ang sabi nila, ang kapalaran nakadepende na lamang sa direksyon ng hangin. And true enough, there is a lot of residents, especially children and senior, now suffering already from respiratory illnesses, not to mention the mess of dust or mud you see all over the area. It is on this light that I wish to understand who are these companies, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Madam Secretary, kindly respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would refer this to Yusek Mitch Kuna, the Supervising Undersecretary for the Environment.
Yusek Mitch Kuna, please respond.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Ma'am, I just spoke to the Regional Executive Director. Would it be acceptable to the Honorable Congresswoman if we submitted a full report on this?
That will be acceptable, Mr. Chair. If I may proceed.
Yes,
May
please
we
proceed.
know, Mr. Chair, the conditions attached to the ECC that you issue to companies similar to this?
We will include that, even the copies of the ECCs as part of our submissions, Mr. Chair.
I hope this one we can yield an answer. Do we have a tripartite monitoring team which is supposed to monitor their compliance?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair, as per the regional executive.
We will be looking forward to hearing from the DNR very soon on this issue before the plenary, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, we assure the Honorable Committee, Mr. Chair, that we will submit all the required documents to the committee as soon as we can. Okay?
Moving forward, Mr. Chair, last budget hearing, I solicited the help of the DNR relative to the tripartite agreement between and among the DNR, PNP, and LGU Mabini pertaining to the use of salvage zone in Solo, Mabini, Batangas. In compliance to the MOA, DNR allowed the use of salvage zone. PNP put up the PNP Maritime Office. However, the LGU Mabini, since its inception up to the present, continues to defy its obligation under the MOA as the area designated for Municipal Tourism Office continues to be occupied by private individuals. To be specific, the same brothers of the incumbent mayor, still the Villanueva brothers or Vilbros. Worse, there are even reports, although unverified, that these private individuals even sold portions of the area or rights to use the salvage zone to other parties. An illegal occupant is selling a portion of salvage zone or the right over it. How can we allow this, Mr. Chair?
Okay, Madam Secretary, can you respond to that question?
Mr. Chair, I will turn over to Yusek Michkuna for the direct
Okay,
response.
Yusek, kindly proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've just been informed, Mr. Chair, that by the Regional Executive Director that the LGU has actually manifested already its intention to withdraw from the Memorandum of Agreement. And I gave instructions for this to be actually implemented as soon as possible, Mr. Chair.
And in addition to the withdrawal, what do we expect from the DNR? I wish to anticipate that the occupation and construction existing in the area are illegal per se. So we need to do something about this. And if I may add, Mr. Chair, prior to this MOA, the salvage zone is occupied and utilized by locals for community fishing and family swimming. Marami pong mangingisda ang nawala ng trabaho at pamilya na nagutom dahil sa MOA na ito. And I do not understand why for a period of more than 15 years, we are allowing these private individuals to exclusively use the salvage zone and worse, to sell portions of it or rights over it in favor of the other parties. Mr. Chair?
Madam Secretary.
Yes, I will turn over to Yusek Michkuna for the direct response, Mr. Chair.
Yusek Kuna.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We are actually, the regional office is actually preparing for the filing of ejectment cases against the illegal occupants now, Madam Chair.
To be more specific, Mr. Chair, may I ask the DNR, malakas po ba ang Villanueva brothers sa DNR why they continue to occupy and possess the salvage zone?
Okay. Before we, the good Undersecretary respond, the Congresswoman has 30 seconds left to question. Okay, kindly respond, Yusek Kuna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hindi naman po, Mr. Chair, hindi naman po malakas sa DNR. Actually, I don't know them personally. The local government units, we're just going through a process, I guess, after complete validation, Mr. Chair.
For the last question, Mr. Chair, before this representation became a member of the HOR, that is 2020 to 2021, I assisted 2 companies in facilitating miscellaneous lease. One is in Bagalangit and the other is in Maynaga, both in Mabini. And for Bagalangit, the same is still being issued a provisional contract. I wish to ask, are we complying with ARTA? Because 3 years have passed already.
Please respond.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll turn over to Yusek Michkuna for the direct response.
Yusek Kuna.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The reason behind issuing provisional permits, Mr. Chair, is that so the activities can already begin by the proponent, since the application for other instruments, for instance, like a foreshore list, take a lot of time and a lot of other requirements. And as soon as they have completed all the requirements, we will be already issuing the...
For the record, Mr. Chair, I personally assisted these companies in complying the requirements, and I am personally aware that they are compliant with those.
Yusek Kuna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we're having they're having a difficulty obtaining the mayor's permit, Mr. Chair.
For the last question, Mr. Chair, I hope I can be given 1 more minute.
Yes, last question, Congresswoman
With
Luistro.
respect to Mainaga miscellaneous lease, the processing was suspended on the ground that the LGU Mabini issued an opposition. But apparently, since 2007 to 2016, under the same incumbent mayor, there has been no initiative in pursuing the same. So my question to DNR is, how do we assess when the opposition is genuine or when the opposition is merely political harassment?
DNR, please respond to the last question of Congresswoman Luistro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The requirement for the mayor's permit, Mr. Chair, is the DNR's compliance with the checklist as provided by policy. So that is, I understand, Mr. Chair, where the good Congresswoman is coming from, but that is the situation, and probably we can call it a predicament that we're in this particular instance.
Mr. Chair, I wish to understand that the power to issue business permit must not be exercised arbitrarily, and the DNR has the full power to intervene when they are going beyond the ambits of the law already. To finally conclude, Mr. Chair, let me just articulate my concerns is not about politics. This is a fulfillment of a duty. Ako po ay taga Mabini. I cannot be an effective voice of the people of Batangas 2nd District if I cannot be an effective voice of the people of Mabini. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank you, Congresswoman Luistro. Now we proceed to the next interpolator. The Chair recognizes Vice Chairperson Jose Joboy Aquino. You are now recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before anything else, I'd like to inform everybody here that I'm a bypass patient. So anything happens to me, you guys are responsible. Bilis kasi ng takbo natin, Mr. Chairman.
Last 5 minutes.
No, really, I am. Mr. Chair, I would like to ask the Secretary, good Secretary of the DENR, regarding the ODA-funded projects.
Can you respond to the query? Madam Secretary.
May I know from the good Secretary, the DENR projects are funded under ODA, their status of implementation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please respond.
I will defer to Yusek Jonas, who leads our international relations and foreign assistance projects.
Okay, Yusek Leones is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Based on our record, Mr. Chair, we have a total 34 of ongoing projects, and we have 16 under the hard pipeline. We have projects, ODA projects, ongoing under biodiversity. There are 9 projects. Lands, 0. Forestry, 7 projects. Projects related to climate change, 2. Environment, 12. Mining, 1. Water, 2. Under the Palawan Council, Sustainable Development, 1. So the amount of ODA for ongoing projects amount to 6.4 billion pesos, Mr. Chair. For the hard pipeline, we have 16 projects under this pipeline. Approximately, Mr. Chair, we have the amount is 14.0 billion, Mr. Chair.
Congressman Aquino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have here also a copy from NEDA in regards to the ODA funded projects of the DENR. No? And You know, Mr. Chair, it shows from the data given by NEDA that DNR order-funded projects, some are behind schedule, no, way back 2013, but this is up to 2027. I would like to know the reason for this, maybe in writing na lang, no? Also, and how does the agency address the delays of this order-funded? Number 3, data reveals also that DNR has only a disbursement rate of 52.03% of the loan proceeds under the order funds. And why is it that the agency has a low disbursement rate? Again, in writing. Let's go to WPS. Madam Secretary, no, I have been hearing extraction of lands from different islands of the Philippines, no, from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. My question is, are we sure that those being extracted are not the ones delivered in maybe any islands, WPS, West Philippine Sea, because this is of national concern. This is a concern for all of us in the future or maybe in the near future. We might be, sorry to say this, we might be using it for ourselves, for our family. Baka gamitin to sa atin. No? And concern ko lang sana, very strict ang monitoring nyo, that it doesn't go there. Kasi pagdating minsan sa out na ng sinasabi natin yung sinasabi na dash 9 line, na they're saying that it's theirs, iba naman yung atin. But pagdating doon, wala naman, I mean, DNR, konti lang, up to where lang, ilang kilometers lang makikita nyo. I think there should be a stricter monitoring kung saan itong papunta. Dapat pang construction lang talaga dapat build lang natin sa sariling lugar natin.
Baka ikaw, miga ka lang. Yan.
I'm sorry to say this, but I do believe that there were extraction that was masakit. Pero now is the time to really seriously take a look at this and be strict about it. Where our kababayans, our Coast Guard is being bullied already. No, it didn't happen before. Ito just 2 weeks ago. Diba? There were water cannon. Hindi pa nangyari yan. Coast Guard na natin yun. My Philippine flag. No? It's time to wake up, really. Very time to wake up. Lastly, Madam Secretary, I need this now. No? In our region, just like to us, if there is still illegal logging, can we hear a report? Because it's been 1 year, I have not received anything, a report or whatsoever. Well, just this morning and the other day, somebody from the regional office wanted to talk to me. So, it should not be like that. No? From time to time, there should be a communication. But, that happened. So now I'm asking if illegal logging is still there. And if there's a report, para at least we can monitor, we can police, help the DENR. As I've said, I grew up so many years in logging, and I know the in and outs of logging. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Congressman Aquino. Madam Secretary, can you respond?
Sorry. Okay.
Yes, please respond.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may, I will respond to the second matter, which is the concern of the Honorable Congressman, Mr. Chair, about the materials being used possibly on the establishing of some illegal islands and structures in the West Philippine Sea. At this moment, Mr. Chair, just to share with this august body, we are, of course, also working with the Department of National Defense, Department of Interior and local government to actually begin to more closely monitor the activities of extraction everywhere in the country. We are hampered by the lack of resources. We do not even have the necessary speed boats to monitor even the Manila Bay. And this is something that we are trying to actually fix at this point. No? However, we have established in the DENR a geospatial database office. This office utilizes satellite imagery to monitor changes in the landscape and in the seascapes of our area. And because we have access to imagery and to analytical tools, we are able to detect changes that have been happening in our territory. And so with the help of the Philippine Space Agency and other space agencies from different cooperating countries, we are able to detect. As far as enforcement, Mr. Chair, we do defer to, of course, our civilian and armed services in order to enforce the sovereignty of our territories. On monitoring extraction in particular, we are trying to also apply certain artificial intelligence tools to analyze where in fact are the areas that may be at risk because of extraction, whether legal or not. We are now capable, due to the establishing of this office, to overlay the technical descriptions of permits onto the specific landscapes and coastal areas to determine whether certain activities that are detected using satellite imagery and by ground information are within the permits that have been granted. So we are able to detect, in other words, illegal activity as well. Enforcement capability is our main difficulty, and we do have an enforcement unit which we have long been pending here in the House, a bill to actually establish it as a bureau of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. It is now only an office, a unit, and we are in dire need of shoring that up institutionally in order to strengthen our enforcement. On the issue of ODA utilization, I will defer to Yusek Jonas for his comments. And on the issue of logging in Agusan, Mr. Chair, I will call on Assistant Secretary Arley Adorable to actually respond to that. We do have a monitoring of illegal logging hotspots, and there is at this point a discussion on how we might revive the illegal logging task force, but also to enlarge that to include other environmental crimes. So if I may, I will defer to Yusek Jonas on the ODA.
Yusek Jonas, please proceed. Yes, Congressman Aquino.
Just in writing, ma'am.
Okay.
In writing.
In writing.
So I will see, I will be able to see if it's complete or not. As I've said, I grew up in that province and I know the in and outs.
Yes.
Yes, the senior vice chairperson is recognized.
If I may add to your list of data requirements, can you please add the cost of commitment fees and interest fees for those projects in delay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Last question, Congressman Joboy.
Yeah, last question, Madam Secretary. On the proposed on the National Expenditure Program, we have on page 19 under Department of Environment and Natural Resources, under capital outlays, there's a proposed 46 million for Regional Office 13 proper. May we know from the good secretary what is this proposed?
Yes, before the good secretary would respond, that would be the last question, Congressman.
Yeah, that's the last
Thank you.
question.
Madam Secretary, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will turn over to Undersecretary for Field Operations Mindanao for this answer, Yusek Mark Pagada.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Your Honor, I think that outlays for the renovation of the regional office, construction of the regional office building.
And this is the total amount of the construction?
It's part of the second phase, Your Honor.
Yeah, this is for the final, second part na.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. I just want to put that on record that this is the second and
phase.
final.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Aquino. Now we proceed to the next interpellator. The Chair recognizes Representative Maria Alana Santos. Congresswoman, please proceed.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and of course, our good Secretary, Secretary Lanzaga, and our fellow DNRs. My question just goes like this. It is regarding the infrastructure projects and environmental protected areas, particularly in watershed areas. First, what parameters do we have in place in assessing such areas as potential source for hydroelectric power? Second, what is the requirements that private energy companies need to submit to operate a hydro power plant in environmental critical projects? And if these companies do not comply with these requirements, what actions does the DENR take against non-compliant companies against hydroelectric power plants?
Madam Secretary, can you respond to those to the three questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will defer this to ASEC Marsamaro and Yusek Junadobo for the specific answers on protected area requirements for infrastructure projects and on the legality and legal requirements for infrastructure in PAs. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
ASEC Amaro, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary, Your Honor. Basically, under the INAIPAS, there are allowable projects, and I believe depending on the capacity, hydroelectric plants are one of those allowed, subject to the usual process of determining their feasibility and their likely impacts in terms of their establishment. So basically, this will go through the usual review, depending on perhaps what is in the protected area. It would help much, Your Honor, if we can zero in on the protected area, because that would provide for us with better guidance in terms of what would be the requirements. If, since I believe your honorable representation is from Region 12, would it be in Mount Apo Natural Park that you'd be referring to?
No, it is the watershed in Alamada, Libungan.
In the Alamada, Libungan. Basically, the areas were determined and designated as watershed reserves because of their potential for water-based projects such as for irrigation and in the process with power generation. So I guess that's the reason why these were considered as parts of the initial components of the National Integrated Protected Area System. So pasok po siya doon sa rationale, sa justification in putting up these areas. But then again, we will go through the specifics in terms of the protected area management plan where this can be situated, because there are areas which were designated as off limits, the street protection zone. But for the multipurpose zone, I believe this would be allowed.
Yusek, just a follow-up question to that. Before anything will be constructed in the watershed area, which is protected by the DENR, isn't ECC must be secured in the PAMB before any construction takes place?
Yes, Madam. Mr. Chair.
Yes, please proceed.
Madam Secretary, I guess it's already common knowledge that before you start hitting the ground and doing anything, you should have secured all the necessary clearances, endorsements, as well as the permits. Yes, please.
Thank you, Yusek. Actually, that is my point. Ay, ASEC po. Thank you po, ASEC. Actually, that's my point. No? Having said that, we are concerned about, this concern actually raised last year regarding the Alamada hydroelectric power plants of the Euro Hydropower Asia Holding established in Cotabato that was allowed to construct the power plant without even securing the PMB or BAMPI clearance or the ECC. However, despite not them being able to secure those certificates, I want to put into record, Madam Secretary, and of course, Mr. Chair, that the Euro Hydro was issued the power service contract in 2012 and the certificate of confirmation of commerciality in 2016 without even securing an ECC and the PMB clearance. The ECC was released only in 2021. Late na po ito, and it shows hindi compliant ang Euro Hydro. Was the DNR even aware about this issue? And shouldn't there be sanctions to the Euro Hydro for actually starting the construction and even securing, they've already discussed a lot of things. Actually, this is out of record po kasi. Hindi po dapat ito mention, pero they were issued, they were actually allowed to supply electricity already to the province of Cotabato because they were already nagpa-notarize po kasi sila ng what do you call it? Certification. So marami na po silang na-bypass when it comes to DNR. And what are your actions to actually address this? 2012 and 2016 meron sila na-secure from DOE, so this is actually a concern with DOE and DNR. No? So 2021 na po sila nakabigay ng ECC and they're not even complying the reports na kailangan po submit every year for the ECC. So what is the action DNR is gonna do, or what are the penalties that DNR will actually impose upon the new hydro that is taking place or is actually constructed in Cotabato?
Okay, can we hear from the good secretary? Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I turn over to Yusek Mark Fragada to respond in detail, there was an ECC and an area clearance, we understand, in 2020, but it was withdrawn and actually returned for further amendment. But I'll turn over to Yusek Mark Fragada for the detailed response. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Please proceed.
Mr. Chair, Your Honor. Actually, we took a look at that issue because I remember last year, it was the same issue raised by the good Congresswoman. And as mentioned by the good Secretary, we already called back the issuance of the PAMB clearance because we did realize when we looked at the issue that the proponent is truly required to secure current PAMB clearance for this area, number one. Number two, as of now, it is non-operational and we are keeping people around the area to make sure that it's not operational. But seeing that there is a mention of supplying power already, we will continue to investigate and make sure that there is no power supplied to the grid. Your Honor, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, just a follow-up question. However, my other question was, what will you do about the 2012 and the 2016 permits that they were actually able to acquire to even construct the power plant without the ECC? As mentioned by ASEC, the ECC had to be placed before any construction or other operation to actually take place and given by the DOE.
Yes, please proceed. Mr. Chair, Your Honor. Yes, we'll take a look at it, but just to correct the procedure, a PAMB clearance is first required if a project is inside the protected area. So we will take a look at the procedure and the processes. Then we will investigate also the possible sanctions that we may actually imply in this particular incident.
Congresswoman Sam, kindly wind up your questions, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Your Honor, may I just request the DNR to submit and provide our committee, the Committee on Appropriation, regarding the following actions they want to take place regarding the said documents, which we will also be giving a copy of, para nga po ma-address din nila ang issue na yun. So that these bypass, when it comes to acquiring documents from the DNR before it actually is allowed to implement any projects from the private sector, would be addressed not only in Cotabato but in the whole Philippines. Yun na po, maraming salamat.
Thank you. The good secretary, kindly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to note with gratitude that the topic that was brought up and the issue that's brought up between the convergence and the coherence between two departments, the DOE and the DNR. We are under this administration working very closely with the DOE in order for us to ensure energy security for the country. While this may not have been present in the past, under this administration, there is a very clear attempt to provide that coherence and synergy between the different departments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Secretary. Now, we proceed to the next interpolator. The Chair recognizes Representative Marco.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary, and the members of DNR. I have some questions. First, I look at the budget that you have presented earlier and compare this with the budget as released in the NEP. We were given copies of this, and it appears that the total budget of DNR is not 24 billion pesos. It's actually more than 25 billion pesos, because this includes the automatic appropriation of 1.2 billion. I would like to know, ma'am, saan po mapupunta yung 1.1 automatic appropriation?
Okay. Madam Secretary, can you respond?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will turn over to Yusek Anati for her detailed response.
Yusek is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The automatic appropriations amounting to 1.1 billion for 2024 is actually for the RLIP, Mr. Chair, which stands for the retirement leave pay for the employees, and the rest, Mr. Chair, is from the special accounts from the Integrated Protected Areas Fund, the retained incomes from also the protected areas, the Wildlife Management Fund, also the Air Quality and Water Quality Management Fund of the EMB, and the royalties from the Mines and Geosciences Bureau and Wildlife Management Fund for the Palawan Council for Sustainable Development, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think that's correct, ma'am. What I would like to be sure is we are not going to be short of the total budget, because the 5.768 budget trillion includes all this automatic appropriation. So if we do not include this in your budget, it might appear that we have a lower budget in 2024. The second question that I have here is, how much are we spending on the greening program of the government year to year? Magkano po yun?
Madam Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I will defer to Yusek Anate for that amount. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed, Yusek.
Okay, Mr. Chair. From 2011 to 2016, Mr. Chair, we have already allocated 32 billion pesos. From 2017, under the enhanced NGP up to the present, Mr. Chair, we have already allocated 24 billion pesos, a total of 56.4 billion pesos, Mr. Chair.
In a period of 11 years. Tama po ba yun?
2011 to 2023, yes, Mr.
So on the average, we are spending how much per year on the National Greening Program, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary? Magkano po yan?
Please respond, Yusek.
if you have already allocated 56 billion divided by 11 years,
That's almost 5
5 billion
billion
pesos.
a year. 5 billion pesos a year on the greening program. I would like to see the trees planted during the last 10 years costing the government 5 billion pesos per year. At nakalagay po dito sa report ninyo, you have a total of 2,220,000 hectares, 1,000 hectares of land that you have planted. Ilan po ang nabuhay dito, yung mga tinanim nating mga puno, at saan po natin makikita itong mga ito? Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr.
Madam
Chair.
Secretary.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. To answer the Honorable Congressman, I will refer to our Director of FMB, ASEC Arle Adorable. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
ASEC, you are recognized. Please answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. Thank you, Madam Secretary.
ASEC, kindly speak closer to the microphone.
The implementation of the NGP is spread throughout all the provinces and regions in the country, Your Honor. And we have an average of 78%. We have an average survival rate of 78% of the total of 1.7 million hectares planted across the country.
78% of the total trees that you have planted are now, it should be from 2011 to 2023. Malaki na po yan, siguro mga puno na yan?
Sir, it depends. If we reckon from the year 2010, some of the trees may have reached about 30 to 35 centimeters in diameter. But if we reckon trees that are planted 3 years before today, hindi pa po natin masyadong klaro yung mga yon.
Saan po natin makikita ito mga ito, Mr. Chair? Kasi po, marami po tayong bagyo, marami tayong kalamidad. Ang reason kaya nangyayari yan dahil yung mga puno ay nawawala. At kung tayo ay gumasta ng 5 billion pesos per year on these trees, dapat marami tayong makikitang puno. Parang hindi po natin na-feel yung impact niyan.
ASEC?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, thank you, Your Honor. It can be found across the country, Your Honor. And if Congressman would like to pinpoint a region where we could possibly look for NGP plantations that are successful, because the regions would be happy to provide you with even pictures and even...
Hindi po, ang kailangan natin hindi mga pictures kasi madaling magdalo ng pictures. Kayo po ang magsasabi sa amin ngayon, Mr. Chair, yung mga yan, biro mo, 5 bilyon ang ginagasta natin sa pagtatanim ng puno, and yet we don't feel it. Dapat lumamig na yung ibang parte ng Pilipinas at hindi tayo dadaanan ng ganitong mga kalamidad kung itong mga punong ito ay natanim at lumaki at ating nakikita.
Sir, thank you. We have video documentations of our successful NGP sites across the country. And I was assigned in Cagayan de Oro once, and I would be glad to show to the Honorable Congressman the success stories where these NGP plantations are located.
So ilang pong milyon na puno ang nabuhay out of this cost of 5 billion pesos per year?
So we have actually, from out of the 56 billion pesos that was allotted for the program.
Ilang pong puno, sir?
Puno. 2.2 million hectares have been planted into plantations, but 0.7 million hectares of which are the actual plantations established throughout the country. In terms of puno,
pwede po ba tayo magbigay ng written report kung saan po itong mga ito para kung may distribute po natin yung listahan na ito sa mga congressmen dito at titingnan nila kung ito po yung buhay. Kung di po, sayang po yung ginagasta natin pera. Pwede po natin magamit yan sa iba kung hindi naman talaga. Ngayon, you are planning to spend this year magkano po itong this year ang gagastusin natin? Almost the same amount, 5 billion. Again, ito po mga puno.
Yes, Sec, please respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we will be glad to do that, sir.
Sige po, hintayin po namin yon sa komite.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We will do that, sir.
Ngayon po, ito namang gusto ko po itanong ang DNR. Kayo po ba ay meron po tayong dalawang batas. So, yung pong Republic Act 8749, ito po yung Clean Air Act. At yung Republic Act 9003, ito po yung Ecological Solid Waste Management. Kayo po ba ay sumasangayon na magkaroon ng waste to energy sa iba't ibang lugar sa ating bansa? Kasi po, nagdesisyon po ang Korte Suprema, sinasabi na yung Republic Act 8749 ay hindi pinagbabawal lahat ng incinerators dito sa bansa natin, provided na hindi poisonous at toxic yung ini-emit pag tayo ay gumamit nitong incinerator. Gusto ko pong malaman kung ang DNR ay sumasangayon na sa mga areas na talagang kailangan, kayo po ba'y pumapayag na magkaroon tayo ng waste to energy, lalong-lalo na po sa mga highly urbanized cities kagaya ng lungsod namin sa Baguio.
Okay, from the DNR, Yusek Leones.
Mr. Chair, we would defer to the policy direction of the Secretary, but just to give you a position, but it has to be confirmed by the Secretary. But based on her pronouncement, considering the magnitude and enormous waste that have been generated daily in the amount of 61,000 per tons per day, so while we implement the Republic Act 9003, but we are open, Mr. Chair, for new emerging technologies to address garbage problem in the country, Mr. Chair.
Sa ngayon po ba meron na kayong na-recognize ng mga cities, municipalities na gumagamit o pinayagan yung gumamit ng incinerator o itong waste to energy na mga programa para ma-address yung kanilang solid waste problems?
Before the DNR will respond, Congressman Marco, your time is up. Your indulgence.
Yeah, just one after this answer, if I may.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, Congressman. Please proceed. Yusek Leones. The good secretary is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We are consistently looking into various technologies to actually repurpose our waste. We do not use the word recycle anymore. We use the word repurpose. There are, at the moment, as mentioned earlier, waste to fuel operations, no, with cement companies. We have a number of cement companies that take up as many as 40 LGUs, solid waste, in order to use this as fuel. And waste to energy is one of those directions that we are definitely looking into in order to support, provided that they are environmentally sound. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. Ito po, tungkol po sa headcount po ninyo, I think natanong na rin ni Congressman Edsel Lagman, but I want ito pong sagot dito. You have 17,000 plus employees and you have about less than 3,000 unfilled positions. Ano po? I would like to know, kasi nabanggit po ni Secretary kanina na kulang kayo ng tao, hindi nyo magawa yung ibang responsibilidad po ninyo. Ito pong hindi pa na-fill na positions, kaya po ba nyong i-fill ito nitong 2024 to address your concern po kanina, Madam Secretary, Mr. Chair?
Please proceed, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I responded po earlier, Mr. Chair, we have created an Office for Organizational Transformation to actually make sure that the career paths of our professionals are actually supported in order for us to fill positions where they are needed most. Our biggest competition, Mr. Chair, as I said earlier, would be, of course, in the private sector, wherein all these jobs, whether they be statisticians related to the environment, CPA lawyers that are also familiar with environmental management, they're highly technical and highly valued positions now, even in the private sector. So kakompetensya po namin in terms of hiring lawyers, CPAs, statisticians, and highly scientific and technical personnel. Ngayon po, because the private sector is now heavily investing in their ESG programs, so medyo nahihirapan po kami mag-recruit. However, we do have a program to actually speed up the promotions of our personnel and the regularization of long-standing contract of service. Thank you po, Mr. Chair.
Yes po, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Gusto ko rin pasalamatan, last na lang, yung aming regional director ng CAR, si Engineer Ralph Pablo, sa kanyang pagtulong sa lungsod ng Baguio at iba pang mga probinsya ng CAR. Maraming salamat po at magandang umaga.
Thank you, Congressman Ron. Now we proceed to the next interpolator. The chair recognizes Deputy Majority Leader Marlene Permisias Agabas. You are now recognized, Congresswoman.
Mr. Chair, my dear colleagues, the DENR family, ladies and gentlemen, magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Well, Madam Chair, I have parochial concerns, but a while ago, we were able to discuss it I have concerns with MGB and the EMB. Director Carlos Tayag and Director Dorica Hepe, as witnessed by Director Crisalde Barcelo and Yusek Adobo and Yusek Meets, they have committed that they will visit my district next week for things to be done. The things that needed to be done should be done. So I also Director Binales of Land LMB with Assistant Director Versosa. They also approached me regarding my concern last Congress that they have already set a meeting also. So for now, Madam Chair, I'm just holding on their commitment that they are going to do things for my district. So as to save time, Madam Chair, I reserve my right to ask questions. Hopefully, I'm hoping that something will be done before the plenary, Mom. And I do hope, and I'm very hopeful na with the help of DENR, the concerns of our district will be addressed the soonest possible time. So again, maraming salamat po sa lahat po ng pamilya ng DENR. Especially po, may special mention din ako sa Region 1. Sa mga empleyado po natin sa Region 1, headed by our Director Barcelo. At sa lahat-lahat na po, Director Tayag, pagtulungan natin ang ika-6 na distrito ng Pangasinan. So ma'am, mabuhay po kayo. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat.
Thank you, Congresswoman Agabas. Now we proceed to the next interpolator. The chair recognizes Representative Marcoleta. Is Congressman Dante Marcoleta around? No? Now we proceed to the next. The chair recognizes Vice Chairperson Romeo Mobo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Magandang hapon po, Madam Secretary at lahat ng kasama dito sa DENR family. Good afternoon to you all. Una sa lahat, I would like to extend my thanks to the Secretary for all the assistance given to the province of Surigao del Sur, and in behalf of the province, I'd like to extend our thanks to you. And personally also, I'd like to extend my thanks for acting on my request. Thank you so much po. I have some few observations, Madam Secretary. One is, as I browse your report, I have found out that since 2017 to 2022, you have confiscated more than 20 million board feet of lumber. That's a very good accomplishment. In fact, so congratulations to your people in the field for doing this. The total amount is also estimated to be in the vicinity of 691 million. While this is good indicator, medyo takot lang din tayo, ma'am, dahil nakakalbo, ibig sabihin nakakalbo na rin ang bundok natin dahil sa illegal logging.
Madam Secretary.
In your, hindi pa, wala pang question.
Sorry, please proceed.
In your study, Madam Secretary, tanong ko lang, is there an increase in the illegal logging activities in all areas throughout the Philippines? I hope, Madam Secretary, your answer is not yes. Or is that no? If there is an increase, I hope it's not a decrease. Because I might disagree with you, ma'am. Sorry, pardon me, I might disagree with you because in my province, Surigao del Sur, there is still a rampant illegal logging activities po. So yun lang ho ang aking unang tanong. Is there a increase or decrease in illegal logging activities?
Madam Secretary, please answer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. In terms of illegal logging hotspots, from 18 we now have 16. However, this does not speak to the volumes of the illegal logging outputs. And so here po, I will turn over to ASEC Arle Adorable to explain that some areas have actually been delisted, but other areas have been added to the illegal logging hotspots. And there are areas that have maintained their position as hotspots over time. So unfortunately, Mr. Chair and Honorable Congressman, the area with the highest number of illegal logging hotspots is really the Caraga region. And if I may now refer to ASEC Arle Adorable for the details here.
Yes, ASEC, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, Mr. Chairman, Honorable Your Honor. Indeed, from a high of 31 illegal logging hotspots in covering the period from 2011 to 2014, it is now actually 16. 16 na lang po ang ating illegal logging hotspots throughout the country. But 2, 4, 6, 8 of these illegal logging hotspots are in the Caraga region. It is expected the fact that Caraga basically is a timber corridor of the country. But this does not mean that all of these confiscations that are reported are trees cut from the natural forest. We must realize that trees that are planted trees that are not covered with the correct transport documents as it was transported, are likewise considered illegal forest products, illegally transported forest products. So this does not really mean that these are all natural grown timber growing in trees and cut. Most of the confiscations of our regions nowadays are those plantation logs that are not covered with transport documents issued by the DENR. And yes, sir.
Yes, please.
That I agree with you. Of course, there is in Caraga region, rampant pa rin ho ang illegal logging. Kaya siguro I will go back to the question earlier by Congressman Go, that almost every year we are, in fact in 2024 we are allocating 5 billion for the greening program of the DENR. Is that right, Madam Secretary? 5 billion for the greening program.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The average would appear to be that amount, sir, but allow me to qualify, and I'll turn over to you, Sekanate, in a moment. That amount, some of which is required to be front-loaded in order to prepare the sites for the actual greening program, in order to help organize the people's organizations, as well as, of course, the cost of the seedlings. But I'll turn over to you, Sekanate, just to give the specifics to this request. Thank you.
Thank
you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, for fiscal year 2024, the proposed budget for the greening program is 2.4 billion pesos, but that includes plantation maintenance and protection, site planning and assessment, seedling production, also the operationalization of the modernized mechanized nurseries, hiring of the extension officers, also other activities such as the forest impact assessment, improvement of our nurseries, the project monitoring and supervision. And Mr. Chair, basically the modality is we allow our people's organizations to undertake the plantation, the seedling production. So this is not just actually a reforestation, but also mitigation and a poverty reduction program, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I agree. Probably I agree with that. I might agree with the importance of the program, but would it be better if we have to increase the allocation for our forest rangers who are protecting supposed to be our forest covers.
Madam Secretary.
Mr. Chair, I would agree with the Honorable Congressman that in some areas we are constrained to actually have one forest ranger for more than 2,000 to 3,000 hectares. It is impossible for us under this current budget constraint to afford more, especially in these areas where there is an illegal activity ongoing. We also would like to wish for this august body to consider the adoption of new technologies. We have, for example, in the Forest Management Bureau, a fixed-wing drone that can actually fly for 1,000 kilometers and cover the area in terms of imaging. We have no recourse but to actually depend on new technologies to augment our manpower, and hopefully at some point the capital outlay can also be increased in order for us to afford, especially in the illegal hotspot areas, illegal logging hotspot areas, the use of technologies as well as the increase in human resources. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
On another matter, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, your regional director has presented the program to me and to us in the province on the utilization of fallen magkuno timber in our province. We are blessed, the province is blessed because I think this is the only area in Mindanao where magkuno abounds. And magkuno, because probably old age or typhoon or what, some of them falls down and for many years hindi ito na nasisira, di ba? Dahil ironwood ho ito. So, the request, the program says that instead na nakawin lang po ng mga illegal loggers yun, I know your people in Mindanao knows this, that magkuno in Surigao del Sur, yun ho ang pinakaabalahan ng mga illegal loggers doon. Nagiging sindikato na ho yung nakawan ng mga fallen magkuno timbers. Now, there was a proposal po that this will be I think inventoried by your people, and there was already an inventory. In fact, the remaining fallen magkunos available in the area is almost 1 million board feet. Now, there is a proposal coming from 4 people's organization na kung pwede ho sana magamit nila ito, instead na nakawin lang po, magamit ng mga people's organizations that are composed of indigenous peoples in our province. Magiging source of income po ng mahihirap sa bayan namin, sa probinsya namin. This was proposed, but unfortunately, it was disapproved in the level of sa taas yata sa national office ng DENR. The program is very nice. This is a multi-agency approach program, Madam Secretary, LGUs, DTI, TESDA, DENR. This is a multi-agency approach of utilizing magkuno for the people in Surigao del Sur.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'll turn over to Yusek Mark Fragada in a moment, and we're grateful for the recommendation, suggestion of Honorable Congressman. We will definitely look into this directly in my own office, so that we can also abide by whatever existing executive orders or other legislation might be in place in order for the use of the Mangkono. Because as we know, there are some rules regarding how this may be actually utilized. However, we are very interested in the multi-agency approach, working with the provincial government and with the Honorable Congressman. If I may turn over to Yusek Mark, so he may give some details on this query. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Chair, Your Honor. Actually, sir, the proposal reached us already, and hindi naman po natin dinisapprove, but we're looking at the safeguards that can be put, because we did look at the plan wherein it's a multi-agency approach and it's an LGU approach, which we actually appreciate kasi under the guidelines po pwede man po tayo mag-donate, no, pag kinakailangan po ng local government. So, pinadala na po namin sa Forestry Management Bureau, and of course, sa BMB po, we are taking a look at it, and the rest assured, Your Honor, we'll discuss it, and we'll try to help the province po. For your last question, Congressman Momo.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. My last question is, well, according to Finance Secretary Benjamin Jokno, Madam Secretary, mining industry is the potential source of sustained economic growth. My question is, my province, alam naman ho ninyo na daming mining doon sa amin, which is the source of employment, source of income of many of Suriganons. Now my question is, how many ECCs have been issued by DENR since June 2022, and what is the plan of DENR to streamline the processing of permits po? Kasi nakakatulong ang mining sa atin pag pinatagal po natin yung processing ng mga permits, baka counterproductive po sa sinabi ni Secretary Ben Jokno. Salamat po.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'll respond to the last question first, if I may, before turning over to Director King of MGB. In terms of the streamlining, Mr. Chair, we are really trying to accelerate the digitalization of this process, not just at the local level, but also to have visualization of the permitting process from the local to the national to central office po. So ang digitalization, we believe, will be the answer to the streamlining as well as the acceleration of the processing of these permits. I wish to say also here, sir, that at this point, the DENR is working very hard with the DOF in order to see whether we might be able to re-enter the EITI, which is the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. And because of this effort, the digitalization acceleration also will be supported. And so hopefully there will be some progress, at least in the different phases that have been identified for the EITI re-entry of the country. I will turn over now to Director King to answer the question on how many, I'm sorry, Director Ted, to please answer the question on the number of ECCs that have been released. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Director, you are recognized.
Thank you very much po, Member Chair. Actually po, I think the question is how many ECC?
Yes.
May I refer it for to the, of course, to the Director of EMD. Thank you very much po.
The Director of EMB, you are recognized.
Again, Mr. Chair, I was informed by my regional director for Caraga that there are 20 CCs granted in the region for mining.
Thank you po. Maraming salamat, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Congressman Momo. Now we proceed to the next interpellator. The Chair recognizes Representative Sergio Dago from the minority.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Madam Secretary. Isa lang naman po yung issue ko. Gusto ko lang linawin kasi medyo binata pa ako, naririnig ko na yung ACC. So, under our existing laws, ano po ba yung definition ng environmental compliance?
Chair, if I may.
Yes, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will turn over to Yusek Mitch Kuna, who is the Supervising Undersecretary for the Environmental Management Bureau.
Yusek, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just clarification, Mr. Chair. Just environmental compliance or the environmental compliance certificate?
My question first, Mr. Chair, is under our existing laws, ano po ba yung ibig sabihin ng environmentally compliance?
Mr. Chair, thank you very much for your question, Mr. Chair. Environmental compliance means development of a particular project while complying with existing environmental laws.
Wala na ho ba ang ibang kahulugan yan? In my understanding kasi, kung ano yung natural, for example, natural habitat ng isang lugar na dinedevelop, yung developer must see to it na mariretain yung biodiversity, ecology, etc. Tama ho ba yung pagkakaintindi ko? Mr. Chair.
Yusek, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, Mr. Chair, kung hindi man manatili exactly the way it was before the project was started, at least mitigate yung impact dun sa biodiversity at yung environment dun sa lugar po kung saan yung project.
Mr. Chair, being there, an official of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, can you cite the specific provision of our existing law na ganon yung definition niya, na mamitigit lang?
Yusek, please respond.
Mr. Chair, I apologize, but I cannot cite the exact provision right now, but from having been involved with the Environmental Management Bureau for a long time, the purpose of the Environmental Compliance Certificate, during the process of an application of the Environmental Compliance Certificate, the possible impacts of a particular project are identified, and mitigating measures are instituted based on the identified impacts to lessen, well, if possible, to completely address the impacts, but to at least minimize the impacts of the project, Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Congresswoman.
Our interpolator was asking for the provision in the law. It's easy to get it from the internet right now. Can we look for it? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yusek, kindly cite the requested provision of the law for the reference of everyone.
Mr. Chair, while waiting,
Yes, Congressman Dago.
I am just asking that kasi ang palagi pong sinasabi ng mga nagde-develop kung ano-ano, nagre-reclaim, ay mayroon kaming ECC from the DENR. So gusto ko lang masiguro, kasi in layman's understanding, without citing the law, kung ako yung ordinaryong mamamayan, environmental compliance, yung dokumento ay certificate na ikaw na nagde-develop, environmentally compliant yung ginagawa mo. So, diretsuhin ko na, Mr. Chair, pero kailangan ko pa rin yung specific provision kasi possible lang ang ano niya, mitigate lang eh. Gusto ko lang masiguro na mitigation lang talaga. Pero yung inisyon nyo kasi, environmental compliance certificate. Ngayon kung mag-reclaim ka, kung dagat yan, ano yung nasa loob ng dagat? Habitat ng mga isda. So, gamit sa atin ng ecology. So, may balik mo pa ba yan? Magkako-comply pa ba? Yung pagtambakan mo yung area na yan? Kasi, doon sa evaluation nyo sa applicant ng ECC, mayroon siyang mga plano na sinasubmit. That's why that is your basis in issuing that certificate. But the certificate is very clear, no? Environmental Compliance Certificate. So, as ordinary mamamayan, talaga bang totoo na yung nagde-develop yan can comply with the environmental yung pangangailangan? Like yung sinayot ko na, yung habitat na tinambakan, yung habitat ng mga isda, yung ecology. Yun lang naman po ang kailangan ko kasi marami na po akong apo. Ayaw ko po yung mga apo ko na dahil lang sa mga ECC na yan, wala lang malalangoyan na dagat.
Okay, Yusek Kuna, kaya please respond.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to cite, Mr. Chair, Section 2 of Presidential Decree 1586, which reads, if I may quote, Environmental Impact Statement System. There is hereby established an environmental impact statement system founded and based on the environmental impact statement required under Section 4 of Presidential Decree 1151 of all agencies and instrumentalities of the national government, including government-owned or controlled corporations, as well as private corporations, firms, and entities, for every proposed project and undertaking which significantly affect the quality of the environment.
Congressman Dago.
Thank you for, ano yung PD? Section 2 PD?
1586 po. 1586.
So, ibig sabihin, statement lang pala yan. So, kung ako ngayon, mag-a-apply ako, Mr. Chair, na maglagay lang ako ng statement na ito, i-comply ko, lagyan ko ng mga ano, kung ano-ano dyan, para may balik yung habitat, so okay na. Anyway, hindi ko kayo sinisisi kasi very simple lang naman pala yung requirement. Statement lang. That's all, Mr. Chair. Basta malinaw, statement lang pala yan. Pwede na mag-issue.
Okay. Madam Secretary, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, just maybe 2 points. There is in our Constitution, Article 11, Section 16, the state shall protect and advance the right of the people to a balanced and healthful ecology in accord with the rhythm and harmony of nature. Secondly, every activity that disrupts a natural system can never be fully mitigated. Our extraction of minerals to actually produce all of these that we see here will never be able to be replaced into its natural restored system. So every activity, any development, whether it's land-based or based in the sea, will be a disruption to the natural ecosystem. The mitigation hierarchy is what the DNR adopts. The first is actually to avoid any negative impact on the ecosystem. If it cannot be avoided, it must be minimized, it must be reduced. If it cannot be minimized or reduced, it must be offset in terms of a compensation so that in fact there could be a net positive result from that development. So that hierarchy is now in place in the DNR, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. The next...
Mr. Chair, just a brief manifestation. With that information, I think this House should amend that law. Kasi very simple statement, mitigation, etc. I think palaliman pa natin yung requirement para sa SEC na yan. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Congressman Dago. The next to interpolate, the Chair recognizes Chairman Romeo Acop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Magandang hapon po sa atin lahat. Iksihan na lang po natin. May I know from the DNR, how much of the funds for natural resources management arrangement or agreement and permit issuance and operations against illegal environment resource activities amounting to 1.72 billion was allotted to Region 4A of your department?
Madam Secretary.
This is for 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we are looking now for the total amount, and I will turn over to Yusek Mitch Kuna and Yusek Anate for these details.
While waiting, Mr. Chair, I would ask the next question.
Yes, you may proceed, Congressman Acop.
Thank you. How much of the funds for protected area development and management amounting to 1.85 billion was allotted to Region 4A?
Mr. Span, Madam Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We are now obtaining the figures from Region 4A.
And the third question, Mr. Chair, is that how much of the amount of 1.55 billion allotted for development, updating, and implementation of the operational plan for the Manila Bay Coastal Management Strategy pursuant to a Supreme Court decision was allotted to Region 4A?
Yes, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the previous question, the earlier question, I'll turn over to Yusek Anate, and for the second question, to Yusek Jonas Leones for the answer.
Yusek Anate is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For 2023, the Region 4A, under its Forest Watershed and Management Sub-Program, has allocated 200.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Congressman Ako.
I would just like to request them to submit kasi napakarami pa may DOE pa tayo.
Yes, Congressman Ako.
Thank you. I ask this question, Madam Secretary, because it is related to the issues and concerns pertaining my district, the 2nd district of the city of Antipolo. Kasi nandun po yung Upper Marikina Watershed area and other protected areas under the jurisdiction of the DENR. And marami po kayong pinatayong small water impounding system doon sa mga source of water flowing down to Marikina River, which causes flooding. As a matter of fact, during the time of former Secretary Sigson of DPWH, we requested that this small water impounding system would be constructed and a dam be constructed sa San Mateo or Rodriguez known as Montalban before, para ma-abate yung fast flowing of water to the Marikina River and thereby delaying yung flooding dun sa mga lowland areas. Kasi yung asawa ni Congresswoman Stella Kimbo, palaging sinisisi ako, kayo ang nagpa-flood dito sa amin eh. O, tingnan mo, the good Congresswoman does not deny it. So ako naman ang tinatamaan. So, yun po yung problema namin doon na, Madam, yung Upper Marikina Watershed area, napakarami na pong tao. And this is under the jurisdiction of the DENR. Wala pong nangyari. Yung first time ko na maupo rito is in 2010. Parami naman yung mga tao doon eh. Hindi po naman po nababawasan. As a matter of fact, there's already a barangay doon po sa pinakatuktok ng watershed area. Kaya yun po yung problema. The other problem is there are other protected areas but pursuant to previous presidential proclamations, nawala na po. However, because of the program of DENR sa stewardship contract, dumami po yung tao, informal settlers, doon po sa jurisdiction ng DENR. So yun po yung aming concern, Madam Secretary, Mr. Chair. And the other one is, ito, gusto ko malaman din kung magkano po ang amount nung mga sweldo ng mga unfilled positions para makita natin kung, alam nyo, kung napakalaki po nito, siguro dapat ilipat na po natin sa ibang programs kasi nasasayang. You have in 2022 3,470 unfilled positions, 2023 3,550. This would, I think, be a big amount insofar as their salaries and allowances are concerned. Yun po yung, mas maganda siguro kung sabihin natin kung irrelevant na itong mga positions na ito or what, para mailagay sa ibang programa.
Yes, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Perhaps to respond to the first comment of the Honorable Congressman, I will defer to our Region 4A and our Undersecretary Mitch Cuna. However, on the issue of the positions, Madam Chair, we do need manpower in the DENR. These are highly technical positions for some of them, and I hope that this will be given due consideration. There are very, specific requirements for certain positions, and we are at the point where we are competing actually with the private sector for the available human resources. in terms of environmental management and governance. So I would appeal to this august body to please reconsider that we should be able to keep these positions and fill them with the technically competent people that are required. On the issue of the flooding, I will defer to Yusek Michkuna on these comments, but also refer to our Undersecretary who is in charge of the Water Resources Management Office on the view that small impounding water systems can actually be integrated into flood control projects as well. If I may, Madam Chair, I will turn over to Yusek Michkuna and then subsequently to Yusek Carlos David.
Before I recognize Yusek Mitch, Kong Akop, the budget for the unfilled position is actually not lodged with the budget of the DNR. It's with the DBM. It's under the miscellaneous personal benefits.
Yes, Madam Chair. What I want to know is, kung nasa DBM, bakit hindi lang natin ibigay sa ibang programa? Yun po yung aking iniisip. Kasi hindi naman po na-fill upan eh. If you look at the trend of their unfilled positions, palaki ng palaki eh.
Yes, Madam Secretary, before.
Thank you, very
yes,
briefly.
just a short response.
Actually, Madam Chair, respectfully, I beg to differ with the Honorable Congressman. Our number has decreased in the past year, and we continue to bring that number down through the Organizational Transformation Office, which we are now, in fact, operating so that we can actually also address this issue of promotions and regularization of contract of service that have been long-standing and should, in fact, already be part of the plantilla positions of the DNR.
All right, thank you,
Madam Chair.
Yusek Mitch.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. According to the Regional Executive Director of Region 4A, Madam Chair, there are 264 small water impounding systems in the district of the good Congressman. And these were constructed between 2012 and 2018. But I think some of them at this point are in need of desilting. And so our Regional Executive Director will coordinate directly with the DPWH for these desilting activities that need to be done, Madam Chair.
So, all right. Your time is up, Kong Akop.
Yes, Madam Chair, dahil ang dami pa ko pang kasama, oh. Kanina pang umaga po sila nakaupo dyan, kagaya ko. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next to interpolate is the Honorable Khalid Dimaporo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll try to go through this as quickly as possible. First, I'd like to request from the DNR the budget for the protected areas in the region of Mindanao to be submitted to the Committee Secretariat. Can I request that, Madam Chair? Secondly, Madam Chair, so I can compare the GAA budget for the protected areas of Mindanao to the work and financial plan of each protected area so that we can see also how much external funds are entering into the protected area. This will be useful for us in Lanao del Norte so we can see in terms of resource allocation or resource dedication to protected areas are being given to to our province. Second, so I'd like to ask for those data, Madam Chair. Second, Madam Chair, I'd just like to confirm with the DNR that Mount Inayawan has been explicitly stated in the NIPAS Act. Mount Inayawan in the 2nd District of Lanao del Norte.
Madam Secretary.
Madam Chair, yes, we note the request for the budget and the work and financial plan for the PAs in Mindanao, specifically for Lanao del Norte. I'll turn over to Secamaro of the Biodiversity Management Bureau for the query on Mount Inayawan.
Secamaro.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, Your Honor. Yes, sir. Mount Inayawan is one of the legislated PAs, especially under the INAIPAS, and recently recognized as an Asian Heritage Park.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and we're very happy with the support that we're getting from the DNR for Mount Inayawan, and the working relationship with the DNR. It's we're not
as far as the governor is concerned and my counterpart in the 2nd District is concerned, we're not unsatisfied. My problem, Madam Chair, is actually in the 1st District. When we were working for the NIPAS Act last Congress, me and my father were focusing on Mount Inayawan. When NIPAS Act was enacted into law, I was surprised to find a protected area in my district, Kauswagan and Bacolod. I would like to now ask the DNR if the Kauswagan and Bacolod protected area is under the NIPAS Act.
Yes, Madam Chair. Asek Amaro, if I may defer to him on this particular query.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, and Your Honor. It's one of what we consider as initial components, and therefore counted as a protected area subject to the process.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to confirm with the DNR, Madam Chair, that this is considered an initial component because of Proclamation number 2152, Series 1981, which was issued by then President Ferdinand Marcos. Can I get that confirmed, Madam Chair?
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I defer to Asek Amaro on the history of the designation as initial component.
Asek.
Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, Your Honor, yes, sir.
Thank you. Now I'd like to ask Madam Chair to place on the record, the DNR, to place on the record the delineation markers for the Bacolod, Kauswagan protected area as stipulated by Proclamation number 2152, Series 1981.
Madam Secretary.
Yes, we will confirm this to the Honorable Congressman, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, Your Honor. We cannot proceed with the delineation because it's not provided in the proclamation. So we will have to check on the real situation by way of what we consider as PASA, Protected Area Suitability Assessment, to check and updates on the meets and bounds of the protected area.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and that's the point that I'd like to drive. Under NIPAS Act, there's no delineation for Kauswagan and Bacolod. Under the proclamation of then President Ferdinand Marcos, there's no delineation markers. It simply says mangrove areas from Liangan River up to Lipatan River of the municipality of Lapayan in the province of Lanao del Norte. The municipality of Lapayan no longer exists. So I'd like to ask Madam Chair if because there's an existing protected area now with specific delineation markers that's being managed by the DNR, is that simply an interpretation of the Department of the Environment and Natural Resources? Because it's not stated by law and it's not stated by the proclamation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I defer to Asek Amaro on this issue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Per consultation with the Regional Executive Director concerned, the protected area subject of the discussion of the Honorable Congressman forms part of the areas proclaimed as protected area nationwide for mangrove conservation and protection. So basically, there was no technical description provided for this particular area. But I guess, as I mentioned, we already have the protected area suitability assessment, which is under consideration by the central office, which would serve as our basis in finally delineating on the ground or perhaps determining the meets and bounds on the ground, subject later on for monumenting as the case may be.
Thank you, Madam Chair, because this is surprising for me to hear, because last Congress, I submitted a letter to the DNR, and the legal office of DNR submitted to me and answered me, stating that it depends on Congress for us to legislate delineation and make that area a legislated protected area under the NIPAS Act. Now, Madam Chair, I'd like to place on the record, kami naman sa Lanao del Norte, we're in support of protecting our environment. We have no problem with Kauswagan and Bacolod being a protected area. Our governor wants that. But for it to be a protected area, ano nangyayari? There are coastal barangays there already. When we have DSWD, Seeds Kalahi program, kailangan dumaan kami sa PAMBI and the DNR. We'll wait, we'll work with you, no problem. When we have flooding in our highways and we have DPWH flood control programs, kailangan dumaan kami sa DNR. We'll wait, we'll comply, no problem. But then what hurts us is when we see this, a convention center built in the middle of a mangrove. Ever since I sat as governor, we supported the DNR. My mother, who is now the governor, is supporting the DNR. And this is a slap in our face, which is why I filed a House bill delisting Kauswagan and Bacolod as a protected area. Now, I'd like to put on the record, Madam Chair, that we now have a very proactive regional director, regional executive director. Ang problema talaga dito is his predecessor left it to the Penro. And that's what happens when you have satellite management. Our Red now is very proactive and he's doing an investigation. And in part of that investigation, lumabas yung issue that this convention center, and I hope it can be explained to me, was issued a CNC, not in the region, but in central office. And this issuance of the CNC was issued after this convention center was completed. So I'd like to understand this because we want to protect the area. But I asked our governor, my mother, Ma'am, what do you really want with this protected area? We work with DNR and we resolve our issues, or we delist the protected area? Ang sagot ni Gobangding, if they are not protecting anything, we might as well remove the protected area. So I waited this long to speak in this budget briefing so that the Secretary can hear our concerns. Red, very supportive. I hope his investigations will not just become a dead end. If I had more time, I would ask anong mangyayari after the show cause order, etc., etc. Ako naman, I was governor in Lanao del Norte. For us to stop kidnapping in my province, we really went after the kidnappers. For us to really protect the area, and there's malfeasance or negligence on the part of the local chief executive, the only way to ensure that protection will continue is to file administrative cases. So that's the last manifestation that I would like to do, that after the findings of the Red, if there is negligence on the part of the local chief executive, sana lang it will be sent to the DILG so that administrative cases will occur. Thank you, Madam Chair, for that matter.
Thank you. And Madam Secretary?
Thank you very much. We value very much the comments and the narration of this incident from the Honorable Congressman. We work very closely with the DILG po. So if we can, in fact, accelerate this investigation, we will certainly bring it forward to you, Madam Chair, and of course the Honorable Congressman, and to the DILG. At this point, there is a very close cooperation between the DNR and the DILG. We recognize that there may be lapses in local governance, and these are sometimes beyond what we can control as far as the DNR is concerned. However, in this specific case, since there are very clear evidence of decision-making that will in fact negatively impact the environment, we would be very glad to actually pursue. Thank you very much, Madam.
But are you aware of this case?
Personally, Madam Chair, not myself. However, the Red and of course the BMB is aware of this, as well as our Undersecretary for Mindanao. If I may call Yusek Mark Fragada to actually comment. Thank you.
Madam Secretary, Your Honor. Actually, sir, we will take a look at it. No? Actually, it's the first time that I saw it's like in between the mangrove area, which is a clear violation of, it's a clear-cut violation. So we will pursue the investigation. I will monitor closely our regional executive director. And we will, sir, we will give you reports, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next to interpolate from the minority, we have the Honorable Presley De Jesus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have only a few questions. With regard, we represent the power block in energy sector. So I would like to ask, how many more pending ECCs as far as the application of power generation is concerned? Meron po bang mga nag-apply sa inyo na pending hanggang ngayon? As you know, Mr. Chair, we're lacking of power sources, so this is very critical for their approval, that we need to fast-track the approval of that as long as they are already complied with the applications, Madam Chair.
Yusek Mitch? Sorry, Madam Secretary.
Madam Chair, if I may request EMB, Yusik Mitch Kuna, and ASEC Gilbert to actually respond to the query.
Number.
Mr. Chair, actually we don't have the full account of how many energy projects right now that have been granted all over the country, and so what are also remaining to be
Madam
pending.
Chair, I just want to ask yung pending lang. Yung
Yes,
only
yes.
granted, pending lang.
Yes, sir. We'll try to get the number of the pending applications.
So, any estimate, there's only few generation company who applies because ang katwiran nila matagal daw mag-approve, no? How long does it take for example 500 megawatt generation? How long does it take para ma-aprobahan nyo? As far as
Well,
PCC is
actually,
concerned?
Mr. Chair, we have already reduced the processing period to 40 days.
40 days?
Yes, sir.
So you mean upon approval, upon acquiring all those requirements from LGUs, and then DNR ba kagad yun, or there's more agencies to be secured?
There are certain processes that has to be undertaken prior to submission. So there are scoping processes like both technical and public scoping. These are undertaken before submission. So, but upon submission, we have 40 days to process until issuance of the ICC.
So that's the maximum 40 days?
Yes, sir, that's the processing period.
So it depends, same as far as 200 megawatt, 500 megawatt, or 1,000 megawatt. Would
Yes,
that be
sir.
the same?
Yes, sir, that applies to all environmentally critical projects, the category A projects.
So Madam Chair, the reason why I asked this question, no? Kasi maraming nagre-reklamo, pending daw, matagal daw sa inyo. So please make an action on it, Madam Chair, kasi importante ito. Kulang na kulang tayo sa kuryente. And please provide us the pending application of ACCs for who applied for power generation. That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next to interpolate from the majority, we have the Honorable Rufus Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A pleasant good afternoon to Secretary Tony Yulo Loizaga, the officialdom of the DNR, and at this point I'd like to recognize the most outstanding regional executive director of DNR, who is no other than Director Henry Granado. Can you please rise, Henry? He has been referred also earlier by Congressman Khalid. Madam Chair, our Constitution has a declaration of principles and state policies. Section 16 of this declaration of state policies provides that the state shall protect and advance, not only protect, but advance the right of the people to balance, it also says balance, and healthy ecology in accord, Madam Chair, with the rhythm and harmony of nature. Now, this cannot be amended. It is a constitutional provision. And I'm very glad that we have a excellent secretary here who is now leading the charge to protect our environment and our people. First, let me thank Secretary Loizaga. In recent memory, there has been no Mindanao-wide multi-stakeholders conference and forum. But last February, the Secretary with most of the undersecretaries were in Cagayan de Oro, Madam Chair, because we have the Mindanao multi-sectoral, multi-stakeholders fora. And that is why I saw the Secretary and all the DNR with government officials, including the BARM, and we had NGOs and other stakeholders. Thank you very much, Secretary Loizaga. You're giving importance to Mindanao, the land of promise and the land that will bring about more ecological support and protection of our people. And then, Madam Chair, let me tell you that in Cagayan de Oro, your regional director has been actively protecting our environment through. We walked through and entered our caves and our waterfalls. This cannot be left to the elements. This cannot be left to poachers. This cannot be left to unscrupulous entrepreneurs who would develop them, destroy the environment. So therefore, we have already identified through our regional director, Henry Adornado, we have identified what are the caves that we can develop, because there are some caves we are going to develop to protect precisely the ecology. So there are about 6 caves. We went also to the waterfalls. We walked to the waterfalls with our regional director, and we're going to protect them. So these are the things we're doing. Let me thank you also the recent download of 5 million for the greening program. There was a question, where are the trees? Let them come to Cagayan de Oro, and we'll show them the trees growing. Because your ASEC early adorably made sure that these trees that we planted in the upland barangays are now big falcata trees, coffee, bamboo, all of these are found in Cagayan de Oro. That is because the DENR is working hard to protect our environment and enhance it. Madam Speaker, Madam Chairman, we are therefore here to be able to support 100% the budget of our DENR. And now we see, I always study, all these papers sent to us, and we have here, Madam Chair, the budget of the DENR, which is stated at 24,572 million. That is for 2024. We're happy, Madam Chair, that the budget of this year of only 23 million has been increased by 5%, 49%, with an increase of 1,279,825,000. My question, Madam Chair, to our good secretary, are you satisfied with only 5% increase in view of your very excellent performance as the leader of the charge to protect our environment, Secretary Lusaga?
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the Honorable Congressman Alvarez has just said, of course not po, respectfully. Respectfully. So we are really seeking additional support from this august body, and hope that you will consider some of the more urgent concerns, especially for the protection of our marine environments.
In view of that, Madam Chair, that she is not really satisfied, I want our Secretary to be happy, so that you'll all be happy. So I move, Madam Chair, that the proper time, always my guru, that in the proper time, because of the excellent performance of the DENR in pursuing the constitutional mandate to preserve and balance our ecology, I therefore move not only to approve the present net figures, but to increase the budget of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources.
Duly noted. Duly noted, and the motion shall be considered at the proper time.
At the proper time. Just one more question. Is your jurisdiction? Just point. The Pelaez Ranch, which has a forest agreement and permit, started by no less than the Vice President of the Republic of the Philippines, Emmanuel Pelaez, a friend of our chairman here, Chairman Alvarez. May Nidaninong, he preserved this more than 3,000 hectares in Cugman. He preserved it. The heritage tree of Cagayan de Oro, which is about 300 years old, had been preserved. Yes. And the problem now, it has expired. Unscrupulous people are now trying to be able to grab it by claiming to be indigenous peoples. Now, my question, Madam Secretary, the issuance of your permits is subject to the consent, the IPs. But under your investigation, if indeed there are no IPs, because there are none, since I was a vice governor, I go up to that area, there are no IPs. Now, IPs are cropping out. My issue is, are we going to be beholden to the NCIP when there will be a finding of our officials of the DNR that certainly there are no IPs in that area? Can we now therefore issue for the heirs of Emmanuel N. Pelaez, the first Vice President of the Republic of the Philippines, whom we are proud of Mindanao? Can we not issue already, irrespective of any NCIP opposition, to renew it? Because you are the ultimate jurisdiction. Let us not have a 1 year. They are developing this. They are continuously planting. They are protecting the trees. Once this will be cancelled or not given renewal, we will lose the only area, together with Malasag forest, that is inside Cagayan de Oro, just 15 minutes from the poblacion. So that is my query, Madam Chair, because this has been pending for some time. We have to act. DNR should have to renew the Pelaez permit, Madam Chair.
Right. Thanks for your last question, Kong Rufus. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may thank the Honorable Congressman for his plea for the increase in our budget as well at the appropriate time. Thank you very much to the Honorable Congressman. On the query regarding the Pelaez forest, we actually respect genuine claims of the indigenous people. However, we are also aware that there have been many instances wherein there have been claims that have been unfounded. And therefore, we will respect the history of this area, and therefore we will expedite the investigation and the issuance, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That is the most correct answer I have heard this afternoon. That's why, Madam Secretary, leading the charge for your increase will be Vice Chairman Steli Kimbo and our Chief of the Bisaya Group, no less than the Capo El Tuti Capi. We have here Congressman Governor Pito Alvarez. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Secretary. Continue your good work. We are always supporting the DNR. Thank you very much.
All right. Next to interpret is the Honorable Janet Garin. Kong Janet is not around. Next is the Honorable Eulogio Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Mukhang tuloy ako medyo nauna yung primo ko Talagang batikan yan. Kaya na mag-aaral sa akin. So, magandang hapon po, Madam Chair, at sa ating kasamahan na mamabatas. Ganon din po kay Secretary Loizaga and DENR family. Madam Chair, meron lang po ilang katanungan. Actually, palagi naman itong problema natin Opo. Kasi marami ang na-abandon na minsan ng mga kahoy na nakukonfiscate. Anong tanong ko po, Madam Chair, may programa na ba ang ating DENR sa mga nahuli o nakukumpiskang mga kahoy? Dahil sa karanasan namin sa probinsya ay nasasayang lang po at nabubulok sa tagal na pag-usad ng kaso. Samantalang maraming eskwelahan ang nangangailangan, hindi na po napapakinabangan. Ang nakakalungkot nasira ng ating kalikasan, nawala pa ng pakinabang itong ating mga nakukumpiskang kahoy. Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, maraming pong salamat sa tanong ni Honorable Congressman. Yes po, may programa po ang DNR tungkol sa mga kumpiskadong mga kahoy. But I will defer to Yusek Junadobo, head of our legal, to explain this. As I understand it, Madam Chair, for as long as there are legal proceedings that are ongoing, there is a challenge in terms of distributing and actually making use of the confiscated logs. However, I wish to say before I turn over to Undersecretary Adobo that we have had conversations with the Department of Justice on how we might be able to expedite this issue of settling environmental crimes, and how that might be in fact part of the existing system already, judicial system, so that we may actually be able to settle any issues and any cases as quickly as possible in order for these types of assets to be made full use of for the public good. If I may turn over to Yusek Adobo, Madam Chair.
Yusek?
Madam Secretary, totoo po nun, yung sinabi ni Secretary Yulo, yun na po yung programa. Pero dagdagan ko lang po, merong hierarchy of donees, no? Dinodonate po namin yung mga confiscated pagka wala na pong pending na kaso. At unang-una rito, yung mga eskwelahan po. In fact, there were instances in the previous dispensation that we worked closely with TESDA and PAGCOR para sila po ang gumastos para ma-convert into chairs and tables yung aming mga confiscated na forest products land.
Nandun na po tayo. Ang problema po natin, sa tagal nasisira na yung kahoy, hindi na rin lang po napapakinabangan. Yun ang ano ko na, kung paano natin mapadali na bago man sumapit na masira na yung kahoy, magamit natin. Hindi yung paano pa natin gagamitin niya kung sira na, wala na, bulok na eh. Useless.
Ma'am, if I may, nakita rin po natin ang issue na yan. Dalawang bagay yung ginawa natin upon instruction of the Secretary. Gumawa po kami ng mga paglalagyan ng mga confiscated. We will protect it from elements, no? Para hindi mag-deteriorate. At isang paraan, we would manifest in court, if the court would so allow, we would convert it into basta nakaalis pendants, pero kung pwede nang ibenta para maging yung proceeds magamit din, i-infuse doon sa forest protection. Yun nga lang po, tulad nung nabanggit ng ating mahal na kalihim, pagka nag-oppose po ang kabilang partido, minsan pinagbibigyan ng korte, doon po tayo natitigil. Pero mas naming binibigyan na lang yung pagprotekta ng mga confiscated forest products para hindi po agad nasira. Thank you po.
Opo, kasi yan ang problema natin palagi. So ano kaya, Madam Chair, kung pagdating po sa court na pwede naman pag nakita na nila o kaya na-picture na, pwede nga pakawala na yung kahoy para mas magamit. Kasi ang nangyayari, habang dinatapos yung kaso, nando doon. So wala pong mangyayari, talagang mabubulok yun. Opo, lalo na pag yung medyo kalaban, medyo magaling din. So sayang po. So ang pangalawang katanungan ko po, mayroon po tayong mga record na nahuli sa illegal na pagtutruso na nakulong o statistic kung ilan ang small time o ilan yung big time. May pag-aral po ang inyong tanggapan tungkol sa madalas nating naririnig nang kaya lang hulihin yung operatiba, yung maliliit, pero yung mga big time na lumalabag ay na-arbor pa ng mga impluensya. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. unfortunately, we cannot respond to the suspicion that there will be the big time operators at this point without a very clear set of evidence pointing to them. However, there are, of course, constant efforts to actually determine who would be behind such operations. We do know there are small-scale and perhaps there are also syndicated activities. And I will turn over to ASEC Arley Adorable from the Forest Management Bureau to comment directly on this, Madam Chair.
ASEC Adorable.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, Madam Chair, Your Honor. It appears on record that actually we only have, as of today, 16 illegal logging hotspots throughout the country, from a high of 41 in the year 2020. 2010. It simply means that and 8 of these illegal logging hotspots are found in the Caraga region. Wala pong masyadong hotspots sa Luzon except for certain areas in Region 1 and 2. In short, forest protection activities in the other regions where hotspots are not found, are not identified, are effective. And what we are actually trying to, kasi may mga, in relation to the question that the Honorable Congressman asked kanina, kung meron ba tayong plano, the Reds under EO 23 are allowed to donate confiscated forest products who have been issued with an order of finality for disposition. But for those that are still have cases, tama nga sinabi ni Yusek Adobo kanina, that the Secretary allotted storage facilities to be constructed throughout the regions para doon ilalagay yung mga forest products that still under litigation na ready for disposition kapag meron na decision ng court at may finality na.
Kasi po, Madam Chair, nakakaawa naman po itong mga ating forest guard. Sila po ang umiikot sa bundok, nanguhuli kung sino mga illegal logger. Minsan, pag naibaba na po, nahuli nila naibaba. Nakakalungkot lang po, pag inarbor, para bagang nawawala ng lakas yung mga umuli kasi sa ganong sitwasyon. And I hope siguro yung mga ating namumuno naman sa baba medyo bigyan man natin ng ano rin yung sa ating mga forest guard para naman na medyo sipagan naman sila sa kanilang trabaho. Kasi sila po ang nakapronta po doon sa taas. So yun lang po nakakalungkot. Siguro hindi naman to lingid sa iba dyan. Halos lahat po. Nakakawa naman po sila. Sana naman po yung mga big boss nila, suportahan naman sila sa effort na ginagawa nila. Dahil yun po para sa ating bayan, para sa ating probinsya. Kasi pag amo natin, pag gano'n, hindi nila, wala rin, medyo mawala ng gana magtrabaho yung mga yan. Opo. So, ang pangatlo kong katanungan po, may pag-aaral po ba kayo o rekomendasyon man lamang na hindi masyado mabuso ng ating namumuno sa probinsya ang kanyang kapangyarihan sa pag-apruba ng mga quarry permit. Siguro naman, babalitaan nyo na ang kalakaran sa pagkuha ng permit. Pag hindi ka kakampi, talagang dadang ka sa butas ng karayom, so baka hindi pa mapruba ng iyong permit. So, ano po ba ang sa ating maitutulong dito? Dahil alam naman natin na minsan ang apektado rito yung mga small time, yung mga small permittee na minsan gusto man po nilang mabuhay para sa kanilang pamilya dahil ito lang po ang kanilang hanap buhay. And the same time din po, sasabay ko na kasi tumunog na yung bill, May mga sulat din po ako sa DENR regarding, kasi minsan nadagdag pa yung pangalan ko sa mga ano na yan, yung mina-mina na yan. So alam niyo naman, wala naman akong kakayahan dyan. So minsan sumusulat ako, ang tagal bago mag-response. So sabi ko naman, kung ano may sulat ko, laliman naman ang investigasyon. Huwag naman yung pagnano lang, parang walang nangyari. Laliman. Kasi ang nagsusumbong sa akin, taong bayan Di naman makakarating sa akin yan kung walang nagsusumbong. Well, ako, ano ba malay ko? Nandito ako sa Congress. Di naman doon ang trabaho ko. Sila po, kasi minsan concern sila sa akin. Dahil pinapalabas na si Kong Leo ang nasa likod niyan. Wala akong kapasidad. Dahil ako ano lang po ako, pobreng tao. Galing po ako sa pobreng pamilya, nagsikap lang po ako. Kaya inabot ko man ang estado ko sa buhay. Ito po. Ang akin po, makapag-serbisyong galing sa puso. Hindi po yung serbisyong pang sariling interest lang po. Yun lang po. Maraming salamat po, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Kong and Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've taken note of all the comments and recommendations of the Honorable Congressman. I just wish to also bring up, before I turn over to MGB on the query about quarrying in the provincial level, that the challenge of environmental governance is both vertical and horizontal. The national policies need to be interpreted at the local level, and this requires close collaboration between the DILG and local government officials. Nahihirapan po kami, sa totoo lang po, Madam Chair and Honorable Congressman, in terms of our working with some of our different local government officials. But we are here to actually continue and persevere in order for the national policies to be applied locally. There is also a horizontal challenge. Kung minsan po, the local governments need to be technically capacitated to do their job, as well as to be resourced as well, Madam Chair. So we do have those twin challenges in terms of environmental governance, which we wish to raise, both vertical from national to local, and locally between the different units